The mirror reflected back everything I thought I wanted to see. White satin hugged my waist perfectly, and the seamstress smiled as she adjusted the hem of what should have been my dream dress. Then the boutique door burst open, and my mother stormed in like a hurricane determined to destroy everything in its path. "Faye, we need to talk right now," she announced, not even glancing at the elegant gown that had taken 3 months to design. "Emma just got engaged, and she wants June 15th for her wedding. You have to change your date." My fingers went cold against the delicate beading as her words registered. The seamstress froze with pins between her teeth, watching this unfold like a tragedy she couldn't prevent. "That's my wedding date, Mom. The invitations are already printed." But Catherine's face had that familiar look, the one that meant my needs were about to disappear. Family comes first, and Emma's always dreamed of a June wedding. Don't be selfish. My hands trembled as 28 years of being second choice crystallized into this single moment that would change absolutely everything. Standing there in that boutique, watching my mother dismiss the biggest day of my life, I couldn't help but think about how we got here. Emma had always been the sun in our family's universe, while I orbited somewhere in the outer darkness, visible only when convenient. She came into the world when I was 3 after my parents had suffered through multiple miscarriages that nearly tore their marriage apart. The doctors called her their miracle baby, and from that moment forward, she could do no wrong. I remembered being 6 years old, proudly showing my mother a drawing I'd made in art class, only to have her glance at it briefly before turning to coo over Emma taking her first steps. That set the pattern for everything that followed. My achievements became footnotes in the grand story of Emma's existence. When I won the state science fair in middle school, the celebration dinner turned into an announcement party for Emma making the elementary school choir. My valedictorian speech at high school graduation was cut short because Emma had a dance recital that same evening, and God forbid anyone miss a second of her interpretive performance to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I scored a full scholarship to State University, and my parents bought a cake to celebrate. When I arrived at the party, the frosting spelled out "Emma's sister goes to State" instead of my actual name. They'd forgotten to tell the baker which daughter was being celebrated. College became my escape hatch. 4 hours away from home meant 4 hours away from being Emma's shadow. I threw myself into computer science internships, building a life where my accomplishments couldn't be diminished or overshadowed. That's where I met Marcus at a tech conference during my senior year. He noticed me presenting my capstone project on machine learning applications, and afterward, he approached with genuine questions about my research. For the first time in my life, someone saw me first, not as an extension of someone else. Marcus was brilliant but humble, with dark eyes that crinkled when he laughed at my terrible programming jokes. He worked as a software engineer at a startup building applications that actually helped people. Our first date lasted 6 hours talking about everything from recursive algorithms to our favorite breakfast foods. When Marcus proposed 2 years later on a hiking trail at sunrise, I felt like my life was finally beginning. This was mine. My relationship, my engagement, my future. My parents seemed happy enough, though Catherine made sure to mention that Emma was focusing on her career right now, at least 4 times during the announcement dinner. I should have known the peace wouldn't last. Emma couldn't stand anyone else having a spotlight, even for a moment. The wedding planning started 8 months ago, and for once I didn't include my family in every decision. Marcus and I chose our venue together, a restored barn surrounded by wildflower meadows. We tasted 12 different cakes before finding the perfect lemon-lavender combination. Our photographer specialized in candid moments rather than stiff poses. Every detail reflected us, not some performance for others. June 15th was available, and the date felt like destiny. Marcus's grandmother's birthday, the day his parents first met, now our wedding day. We put down deposits, since Save the Dates started the countdown to our beginning. 3 weeks after we mailed our invitations, Emma announced her engagement to Brian at a family barbecue. Brian was a surgeon at the hospital where Emma worked as a pharmaceutical sales rep, and their relationship had been a whirlwind 6-month romance. Everyone fawned over her massive diamond ring, while I quietly wondered why she kept glancing at my modest but meaningful engagement ring, the one with Marcus's grandmother's stone reset in a modern setting. "We're thinking a spring or summer wedding," Emma gushed, batting her eyelashes at Brian. "Something elegant and unforgettable." My cousin Jessica pulled me aside later that evening, whispering urgently while Emma held court on the patio. "Faye, you need to know something. I overheard Emma on the phone yesterday at Grandma Ruth's house. She's been calling your vendors asking about availability for June 15th. She even knew the name of your cake designer." My stomach dropped as puzzle pieces clicked into place. Emma's sudden interest in my wedding planning, her specific questions about venues and flowers, the way she'd insisted on seeing my inspiration boards. I'd thought she was finally showing sisterly interest. Instead, she'd been conducting reconnaissance. "She can't be serious," I said to Jessica, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew better. This was Emma's pattern since childhood. In 4th grade, she begged for piano lessons after I'd been playing for 2 years, then convinced our parents I should quit to give Emma more practice time. When I joined the debate team in high school, Emma suddenly developed a passion for public speaking and somehow ended up taking my spot at the state tournament. Even my college major wasn't safe. She'd started as a nursing student, but switched to business after I landed my first tech internship, claiming she'd always been interested in the corporate world. Jessica squeezed my hand. "I think you should password protect all your wedding accounts today." She was right, but the fact that I needed to defend my wedding from my own sister felt like swallowing broken glass. This wasn't just about wanting a similar wedding or even the same date. This was about Emma's pathological need to take everything that was mine and make it hers, to ensure that even in my brightest moments, I remained in her shadow. And our mother, blinded by 25 years of treating Emma like a fragile princess, would absolutely take her side. As I stood in that boutique watching Catherine demand I sacrifice my wedding date for Emma's convenience, I realized this wasn't just about a single day in June. This was about every stolen moment, every diminished achievement, every time I'd been told to step aside and let Emma shine. And I was done. Absolutely, completely done. The summons came through a group text 3 days after the boutique ambush. Family meeting Sunday at 2. Important wedding discussion. Don't be late." Catherine's message had the tone of a royal decree, and I knew resistance would only make things worse. Marcus offered to come with me, but I kissed his cheek and told him I needed to handle this myself. He understood, though worry creased his forehead as I left our apartment. The drive to my childhood home in Westfield took 30 minutes, each mile increasing the knot in my stomach. Walking through the front door felt like entering a courtroom where I'd already been found guilty. Catherine had rearranged the living room into a formal presentation setup, complete with her laptop connected to the television screen. My father, Robert, sat in his usual recliner studying his hands like they held the secrets of the universe. Emma perched on the couch in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent tissues, already clutched in her manicured hands. The stage was set for her performance. "Faye, thank you for coming," Catherine said as if I'd had a choice. "We need to discuss this wedding situation rationally." She clicked her laptop and a PowerPoint presentation filled the TV screen. The title slide read, "Finding the Best Solution for Everyone," with stock photos of happy families. I almost laughed at the absurdity, but the seriousness on Catherine's face stopped me. The presentation was 12 slides of carefully crafted manipulation. Slide 3 compared our respective relationships, noting that Brian was a surgeon saving lives, while Marcus was just a programmer playing with computers. Slide 5 analyzed our ages, arguing that at 25, Emma had more prime wedding years ahead, while I was already 28 and running out of time to have multiple celebrations. Slide 7 featured a cost-benefit analysis of whose wedding would bring more prestige to the family. Each click felt like another nail in the coffin of my self-worth. As you can see, Catherine continued, laser pointer dancing across the screen, it makes logical sense for Emma to have the June date. She's younger, her fiancé has a more prominent career, and honestly, Faye, her wedding will have more important guests. The governor's wife is Brian's patient. Can Marcus claim any connections like that? The casual cruelty of reducing my life to a PowerPoint comparison took my breath away. Emma chose that moment to begin her performance, tears streaming down her face with practiced precision. I've always dreamed of a June wedding ever since I was a little girl. Remember, Daddy? I used to dress up in Mom's wedding dress and pretend it was June. Robert shifted uncomfortably but nodded when Catherine shot him a sharp look. And Brian's schedule at the hospital is so demanding. June is the only month he can take time off for a honeymoon. If we don't get married, then we'll have to wait a whole year. The manipulation might have worked 5 years ago. Even 2 years ago, I might have crumbled under the weight of Emma's tears and Catherine's logic. But sitting there watching this choreographed production designed to steal my wedding day, something fundamental shifted inside me. I wasn't that scared little girl anymore who gave up her piano lessons and debate tournaments. I was a grown woman with a career, a partner who valued me, and a life I'd built without their help or approval. No, I said quietly, interrupting Emma's escalating sobs. Catherine's laser pointer froze mid-air. Excuse me. I said no. The answer is no. June 15th is my wedding date. It's been booked for 6 months. The deposits are paid. The invitations are sent. The answer is no. My voice grew stronger with each word drawing strength from finally speaking my truth. Emma's tears mysteriously stopped. You're being incredibly selfish, Faye. This is why you've always struggled to maintain friendships. You think everything is about you. That's rich, coming from someone who's trying to steal her sister's wedding date. I shot back, surprising myself with the sharpness in my tone. Catherine slammed her laptop closed. Steal, how dare you use that word? Emma isn't stealing anything. She's asking her older sister to show some maturity and flexibility. My God, Faye, when did you become so bitter? Maybe when I realized my own mother made a PowerPoint presentation about why my wedding matters less than my sister's. The words hung in the air like an accusation, which is exactly what they were. Robert finally looked up from his hands. Girls, please. Can't we find a compromise? Maybe a double wedding? Absolutely not, Emma and I said in unison, probably the first thing we'd agreed on in years. Catherine stood moving to comfort Emma as if she were the victim in this scenario. Faye, I don't think you understand the situation fully. We've already put down deposits for Emma's wedding. The country club, the florist, the band. Everything is booked for June 15th. The blood drained from my face. You booked venues for Emma on my wedding date before even talking to me. We knew you'd be difficult about it, Catherine said, as if that justified the betrayal. We thought if we presented you with a done deal, you'd be more willing to see reason. Your wedding is smaller anyway. It'll be easier to reschedule. The room spun slightly as I processed this information. They hadn't just been planning to ask me to change my date. They'd already acted as if my wedding didn't exist, as if my life and choices were just obstacles to work around. The premeditation of it, the casual dismissal of everything I'd planned, cut deeper than any spur-of-the-moment cruelty could have. How did you even know our vendor details? I asked, though Jessica's warning echoed in my mind. Emma had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. I might have called a few places. I wanted to see what was available, and your name came up. She was trying to be economical, Catherine added quickly, using vendors you'd already researched. It's actually a compliment to your planning skills. A compliment. I stood, my legs shaky, but my resolve firm. You think stealing my exact wedding plans is a compliment? No one is stealing anything. Catherine's voice rose to a pitch usually reserved for political arguments. We're having a family discussion about scheduling. The fact that you're being so dramatic about this proves you're not mature enough for marriage anyway." That's when Grandmother Ruth spoke from the doorway, her silver hair perfectly styled and her expression thunderous. We'd been so caught up in the argument, no one had noticed her arrive. At 81, she moved with the authority of someone who'd seen too much nonsense to tolerate anymore. "Catherine Marie Henderson, did I just hear you say you booked wedding venues on Faye's date without her permission?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Grandmother Ruth had that effect, especially when she used someone's full name. She walked further into the room, her cane tapping against the hardwood floor like a judge's gavel. Catherine's face shifted from righteous indignation to something closer to fear. Even Emma straightened up, her theatrical tears drying instantly. "Mom, you don't understand the full situation," Catherine started, but Ruth raised one hand and my mother fell silent like a scolded child. "I understand perfectly. You're trying to bully Faye into giving up her wedding date for Emma. Again." Ruth settled into the chair I'd vacated, fixing each person with a stare that could strip paint. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? Or did you assume I'd take Emma's side like you always do?" "It's not about sides," Robert ventured weakly. "Isn't it?" Ruth's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Tell me, Robert, when was the last time you stood up for Faye? When was the last time any of you celebrated her achievements without making it about Emma?" The silence stretched uncomfortable and telling. Emma fidgeted with her engagement ring while Catherine's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I stood frozen, hardly daring to breathe as my grandmother went to battle for me in a way no one ever had. "I'll tell you something else." Ruth continued, her voice gaining strength. "I've been funding Faye's wedding. Every penny comes from the inheritance your father left me, not from you two. So this nonsense about deposits and rescheduling, it doesn't involve you at all. Faye's wedding will happen on June 15th as planned, and if any of you have a problem with that, you're welcome to stay home." "Mother," Catherine gasped. "How could you give her money without discussing it with us?" "The same way you booked venues on her wedding date without discussing it with her," Ruth shot back. "Except I was supporting my granddaughter, not sabotaging her." Emma, realizing her advantage was slipping, tried one more manipulation. "Grandma Ruth, I respect what you're saying, but Brian and I are truly in love. Doesn't our happiness matter too?" Ruth turned her sharp gaze on Emma. "Your happiness matters, dear, but not more than your sister's, not this time. You've had your turn being the priority for 25 years. It's Faye's turn now." The truth of it rang through the room like a bell. 25 years of being second place, of stepping aside, of making myself smaller so Emma could be bigger. But no more. Not for my wedding. Not for the life I was building with Marcus. The cycle stopped here in my parents' living room with my grandmother as my witness and my advocate. Catherine made one last attempt. "If Faye insists on being stubborn about this, she's going to tear this family apart. Is that what you want, Mom? Your granddaughter's at war over a date." Ruth stood leaning on her cane but somehow towering over everyone. "The only war here is the one you started, Catherine, and it ends now. Faye's wedding is June 15th. Emma can pick any of the other 364 days in the year. That's final." As I followed my grandmother out of that house, leaving behind the wreckage of Catherine's PowerPoint and Emma's fake tears, I felt something I'd never experienced in my childhood home: victory. Small, tentative, but victory nonetheless. Ruth squeezed my hand as we reached our cars. "Stand firm, sweetheart. This is just the beginning. They're going to escalate before they accept defeat, but I'll be right there with you." She was right, of course. This was only the opening salvo in what would become an all-out war for my wedding and my autonomy. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't fighting alone. And that made all the difference. Monday morning arrived with 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My phone buzzed against the nightstand like an angry wasp, each notification another family member recruited into Catherine and Emma's army. Marcus peered over my shoulder as I scrolled through the onslaught, his jaw tightening with each message. "Your happiness shouldn't be negotiable, Faye. Remember that," he said, kissing my temple before heading to work. I wished I could bottle his certainty and carry it with me through the day ahead. The first wave came from Catherine's siblings. Aunt Martha, who I'd always considered reasonable, sent a lengthy text about how family harmony requires sacrifice and how I was old enough to understand Emma's special circumstances. Uncle Thomas, who lived in Boston and rarely involved himself in family drama, left a voicemail suggesting I be the bigger person and think about your parents' feelings. Even my father's brother James, typically Switzerland in all conflicts, messaged asking if I'd considered the long-term consequences of this stubbornness. By noon, the campaign had escalated to social media. Emma posted a carefully curated photo of herself crying mascara strategically smudged with the caption, "When you thought your family would support your dreams, but instead you're met with jealousy and hatred, praying for healing and understanding during this difficult time." Within an hour, she had hundreds of comments offering support and condemning the unnamed villain of her story. Friends from high school who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly knew I was a selfish bridezilla who was destroying poor Emma's happiness. The restaurant for Aunt Martha's ambush lunch was deliberately chosen for its popularity. Marcello's was the kind of place where Westfield's social elite gathered to see and be seen, ensuring maximum witnesses for whatever scene they'd orchestrated. I recognized the trap, but attended anyway, some masochistic part of me needing to see how far they'd go. The private dining room was already full when I arrived, 12 family members arranged like a tribunal, ready to pass judgment. "Faye, darling, so glad you could make it," Martha cooed, air kissing my cheek, while guiding me to a chair at the center of the table, the seat of honor at my own execution. She'd even invited second cousins I barely knew, padding the numbers to make their position seem more unanimous. The assault began before the water glasses were filled. Cousin Patricia, a therapist who used her credentials like weapons, opened with Faye. "I'm concerned about your mental health. This level of rigidity and inability to compromise suggests some deeper issues. Have you considered that you might be projecting past resentments onto Emma? There's no projection needed when someone literally tries to steal your wedding date," I replied, keeping my voice level despite the heat rising in my chest. "Steal is such an ugly word," Uncle Thomas interjected, spreading his napkin across his lap with practiced precision. "Emma simply fell in love with the same season. Is that really a crime?" Great Aunt Helen, who divorced 3 husbands and considered herself an expert on relationships, leaned forward conspiratorially. "Dear, at your age, you should be grateful Marcus wants to marry you at all. Creating drama might make him reconsider. Men don't like difficult women." The waitress appeared to take orders, and I noticed Aunt Martha had pre-selected the menu. Everything was decided without my input, just like they wanted my life to be. As plates of predetermined salmon arrived, the interrogation intensified. "I heard Marcus's family is quite traditional," Cousin George mentioned casually. "They must be mortified by this conflict. Have they said anything?" The implication hung heavy. They'd already started poisoning that well, too. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Mom just got a call from someone claiming to be concerned about our family joining with someone so selfish. I told her it was ridiculous. Stay strong." "Actually," I said, finding strength in his support, "Marcus's family finds it bizarre that anyone would try to steal someone else's wedding date. They think boundaries are healthy." "Boundaries are just walls by another name," Patricia proclaimed as if she'd coined something profound, "and walls divide families." "You know what else divides families?" I set down my fork, appetite gone, expecting one child to always sacrifice for the other. Playing favorites, treating achievements differently based on who accomplishes them. "Now you're being dramatic," Martha scolded. "Your mother loves you both equally." A laugh escaped before I could stop it. Really, name one time, just one, when Emma was asked to give up something for me. One birthday party, one celebration, one moment where I was prioritized. The table fell silent. Glances were exchanged, throats cleared, but no examples came because there weren't any. There never had been. "This isn't about the past," Thomas finally said, the banker in him trying to redirect the conversation. "This is about the future, about making choices that keep the family together." "Why is it always my choice that has to keep the family together?" I asked. "Why isn't Emma making that choice by picking a different date?" "Because she's younger," Helen said, as if that explained everything. "She has less life experience. You should know better." "She's 25, not 5, I countered. "She's old enough to plan her own wedding without stealing mine." Patricia pulled out her phone, scrolling through something before sliding it across to me. "Look at Emma's social media. Look at the pain you're causing her." The feed was full of Emma's posts, each more dramatic than the last. Pictures of wedding magazines with tear-stained pages, quotes about family betrayal, a video of her sobbing while Brian awkwardly patted her shoulder. The comments section was a masterclass in manipulation, with Emma responding to supporters with just enough detail to paint me as a villain without actually naming me. She's literally crying on the internet for sympathy, and I'm the dramatic one. I pushed the phone back, disgust rising like bile. "She's processing her pain publicly," Patricia defended. "It's actually quite healthy." "It's character assassination disguised as vulnerability," I shot back, surprised by my own eloquence under fire. Aunt Martha signaled the waitress for dessert, clearly frustrated that I wasn't crumbling as expected. "Faye, let me be frank. Your parents are considering serious consequences if you continue this path. Your father mentioned possibly adjusting his will. Your mother is thinking about who gets the family heirloom jewelry. These things matter." Ah, there it was, the financial threat. The inheritance dangled like a carrot, then wielded like a stick. They'd moved from emotional manipulation to economic warfare. But what they didn't know was that I'd been financially independent since college, that Marcus and I had built our life without expecting windfalls from family wealth. If they want to write me out of the will over a wedding date that says more about them than me, I replied, proud that my voice didn't shake. "I'm not for sale." "No one's buying anything," George protested. "We're simply pointing out the natural consequences of selfishness." "The only selfishness I see is Emma wanting my exact wedding date, my exact venue, my exact vendors, and all of you enabling it." I stood tossing my napkin on the barely touched salmon. "This lunch is over." "Sit down," Martha commanded, her friendly mask slipping. "We're not done." "Yes, we are." I gathered my purse spine straight, despite feeling like I might shatter. "I have a wedding to plan. My wedding. On June 15th. Anyone who has a problem with that knows where the decline button is on their invitation." As I walked toward the door, Patricia called out, "This will destroy your relationship with Emma forever. Is one day really worth losing your sister?" I turned back, meeting each of their eyes in turn. "I lost my sister 25 years ago when our parents decided she mattered more. This isn't about one day. It's about every day she was chosen over me, and I'm done pretending that's normal or acceptable or my fault." The door closed on their shocked faces, but I knew this was far from over. The pressure campaign would escalate. They'd attack from new angles, recruit new allies, find new ways to make me the villain in Emma's fairy tale. But something had fundamentally changed during that horrible lunch. I'd found my voice, the one that had been silenced by years of being told to be quiet, be smaller, be less so. Emma could be more. Walking to my car, I checked my phone. 17 new messages, but only one mattered. Marcus had texted, "Just got another call, this time about my controlling behavior." Told them the only thing I control is my urge to laugh at their desperation. "Thai food for dinner. You're gonna need wine after whatever fresh hell they put you through." I smiled, the first genuine smile all day. They could take their inheritance, their family jewelry, their conditional love. I had something worth more. I had truth, self-respect, and a partner who saw through their manipulations. The war was far from over, but I was finally fighting back. And despite their best efforts, June 15th was still mine. The doorbell rang at 7 in the morning on a Thursday, 3 weeks after the restaurant ambush. Marcus had already left for an early meeting, and I stood at the door in my pajamas, coffee mug in hand, completely unprepared for the invasion about to unfold. Catherine stood on my doorstep with Emma beside her, both dressed like they were attending a business meeting. My mother carried a manila folder that might as well have been a weapon. "We need to talk," Catherine announced, pushing past me without invitation. The familiar scent of her perfume, once comforting in childhood, now triggered every alarm in my body. Emma followed her 4-carat engagement ring, catching the morning light as she surveyed my apartment with poorly disguised contempt. "It's 7 in the morning. I stated the obvious, still processing their presence in my space, my sanctuary from their chaos." "We wanted to catch you before work," Catherine said, settling onto my couch uninvited. "This has gone on long enough, Faye. It's time to end this nonsense." Emma positioned herself by the window, backlit dramatically like she was staging another social media post. She dressed carefully for this confrontation, a cream-colored dress that emphasized her delicate features, hair curled to perfection, makeup applied to suggest recent tears without actually smudging. The performance had begun before they'd even knocked. "What nonsense would that be?" I asked, not moving from my position by the door. Every instinct screamed to get them out, but morbid curiosity won. What new low had they prepared? Catherine opened her folder with the ceremony of a lawyer presenting evidence. "These are contracts for the Willowbrook Country Club. As you can see, they're dated 3 weeks ago with a substantial deposit paid. The Madison String Quartet also booked. The florist you recommended at that wedding expo last year contracted. Everything is set for Emma's June 15th wedding." The papers spread across my coffee table like a virus infecting my home. Each document represented another betrayal, another attempt to erase my existence. They'd even booked the photographer I'd spent months researching, the one whose style perfectly matched my vision. The thoroughness of their scheme took my breath away. "You're showing me this," I managed, setting down my mug before my shaking hands could betray me. "To help you understand the reality of the situation," Catherine said, her tone patient, as if explaining to a child. "The deposits are non-refundable, thousands of dollars, Faye. Money we can't afford to lose. The only reasonable solution is for you to move your date." "You mean the only solution is for me to pay for your attempt to hijack my wedding?" The absurdity of their logic would have been funny if it weren't so infuriating. Emma chose that moment to begin her performance. She swayed slightly, hand pressed to her forehead. "I don't feel well. The stress of all this is making me sick." She stumbled, catching herself on the window frame with practiced grace. Catherine jumped up, rushing to Emma's side. "See what you're doing to her? Your sister has been physically ill for weeks because of your selfishness. The doctor says it's stress-induced gastritis." "The doctor says," I repeated flatly. Did this doctor also diagnose her sudden onset of wedding venue kleptomania? Emma's eyes flashed with real anger before remembering her role. She wilted against Catherine, who guided her back to the couch with tender care I'd never received, not even when I'd had pneumonia in college and had to drive myself to the hospital. "That's enough," Catherine snapped. "Your cruelty is astounding. Emma has done nothing but try to plan her dream wedding, and you've turned it into a competition." She literally copied every single one of my vendors. The words exploded out of me, months of frustration finally boiling over. "She took my exact date, my exact plans, and you're sitting here telling me I'm the one competing." "You've always been jealous of her," Catherine said, the accusation hanging between us like a loaded gun. "Ever since she was born, you've resented her for being prettier, more charming, more lovable. And now you can't stand that she found love with someone successful while you're marrying some computer person who nobody's heard of. The words hit exactly where she'd aimed them at every insecurity she'd carefully cultivated over the years. But something strange happened. Instead of crumbling, I felt a cold clarity settle over me. This was who my mother truly was. This was what she truly thought of me. An understanding that really understanding it set something free inside me. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me," Catherine blinked, clearly not expecting this response. "I said get out of my apartment, now!" My voice remained steady even as my heart pounded. Emma suddenly made a choking sound, hand flying to her throat. "I can't breathe. Oh God, I can't breathe." She collapsed dramatically onto my couch, gasping like a fish while Catherine fanned her with the contract papers. "Call an ambulance!" Catherine shrieked. "She's having an attack!" I picked up my phone, but instead of dialing emergency services, I opened the camera. The red recording light blinked as I captured Emma's performance, including the moment she peeked through her fingers to gauge my reaction. Strange how her breathing problems don't affect her ability to check if I'm watching. Emma's gasping stopped immediately. She sat up miraculously cured, glaring at me with undisguised hatred. "You're recording me during a medical crisis." "What medical crisis?" "The one that just ended the second I started filming." "So?" I kept recording, documenting the rage, replacing her fake distress. Or, "Should we review the footage of you perfectly fine 2 seconds ago?" Catherine stood, her face mottled with fury. "How dare you? Your sister needed help, and you stood there filming like some heartless monster." "No, I stood here documenting fraud," I corrected. "Just like I'm going to document you leaving my apartment right now before I call the police for trespassing." "You wouldn't dare," Catherine hissed, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "Try me." I moved to the door, holding it open. "You've got 30 seconds to get out before I make the call." Emma gathered the contracts, shoving them back into the folder with sharp movements. "This isn't over, Faye. You can't treat family like this and expect no consequences." "Funny, I've been thinking the same thing for 28 years, I replied, still filming their exit. Catherine paused at the threshold, turning back with venom in her eyes. "I've already told the entire family that your wedding is postponed due to mental health issues. Everyone knows you're having a breakdown. Who do you think they'll believe, their concerned mother or the daughter who films her sick sister instead of helping?" Considering I have video evidence of that sick sister making a miraculous recovery, I like my chances, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. "You've chosen your side," Catherine declared, as if I were picking teams for dodgeball rather than refusing to be bullied out of my wedding. "When this all falls apart, when Marcus realizes what kind of cold, selfish person you really are, don't come crying to us. You're alone now, Faye. Completely alone." They swept out of my apartment like offended royalty, leaving behind only the lingering scent of expensive perfume and the echo of years of manipulation. I closed the door, locked it, then slid down to sit on the floor. My hands shook as I saved the video to 3 different cloud services, ensuring the evidence couldn't disappear. Marcus found me there an hour later when he came home after I'd texted him about the ambush. He'd left his meeting driven across town and now sat beside me on the floor, pulling me against his side. "Let me see the video," he said gently. We watched it together, his jaw tightening with each second of Emma's performance and Catherine's threats. When it ended, he was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "My security system backs up to the cloud too. I'm sending you the footage from this morning showing them arriving and leaving. Documentation is important." She said, "Everyone thinks I'm having a breakdown." I whispered, the weight of it crushing now that the adrenaline was fading. "Then everyone is about to learn what gaslighting looks like in high definition," Marcus said firmly. "We're not playing defense anymore, Faye. It's time to go on the offensive." He was right. Catherine had fired what she thought was her kill shot, bringing Emma to perform her fake medical crisis, trying to guilt me into submission. But she'd miscalculated. She'd pushed too hard, shown too much of her true face, and now I had it all on video. The war for June 15th had just escalated beyond family manipulation into something darker, more desperate. But for the first time since this began, I wasn't just defending. I was ready to fight back with weapons they hadn't counted on truth evidence and the complete abandonment of any need for their approval. Catherine thought she'd broken me by threatening abandonment. What she didn't understand was that she'd actually freed me. You can't threaten someone with losing something they've never truly had. And what I'd never had was a mother who put me first, a sister who saw me as anything but competition, or a family that valued me for myself. But I had Marcus. I had grandmother Ruth. I had friends who'd witnessed years of this treatment. And most importantly, I had myself finally standing up and saying no more. June 15th was no longer just my wedding date. It was my Independence Day, and nothing Catherine or Emma did could take that away from me. The therapist's office smelled like vanilla candles and clarity. Dr. Sarah Chen had been recommended by my friend Lisa after she'd escaped her own toxic family situation, and I'd booked an emergency session the day after Catherine and Emma's morning ambush. Sitting across from her in a butter-soft leather chair, I felt simultaneously exposed and protected, like someone had finally turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through in darkness for 28 years. "Let me make sure I understand," Dr. Chen said, her voice gentle but direct. "Your mother and sister tried to book your exact wedding venue and date without your knowledge. And when you refused to change your plans, they came to your home to inform you it was already done. They brought contracts," I added, still disbelieving the audacity, like presenting me with proof of their betrayal would somehow make me cave. Dr. Chen made a note in her pad. "And this pattern of your sister claiming what's yours with your mother's enablement, this isn't new. It's been my entire life," I admitted, and once I started talking, 28 years of buried memories came flooding out. The piano lessons I'd loved until Emma decided she wanted them, and suddenly I was told we couldn't afford both. The scholarship to art camp I'd earned at 14, given to Emma instead, because she was going through a difficult phase and needed it more. My high school boyfriend who dumped me after Emma convinced him I was talking to other guys, only to date him herself 2 weeks later. Every birthday overshadowed every achievement, diminished every moment of potential joy siphoned away to feed Emma's insatiable need for attention. I used to think it was because she was the miracle baby, I explained, twisting my engagement ring around my finger. After all those miscarriages, when she finally arrived healthy, of course they'd treasure her. But it went beyond treasuring. It was like I became invisible unless I was serving as Emma's stepping stone to something she wanted. "And how did that make you feel?" Dr. Chen asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. "Oh, it's worthless," I whispered the words, scraping my throat. Like I only existed to make space for Emma, like my dreams and desires were obstacles to overcome rather than things to celebrate. I learned early that loving something too openly meant Emma would want it, and wanting it meant she'd get it. "That's a heavy burden for a child to carry," Dr. Chen observed. "Tell me about Marcus. How does he fit into this family dynamic?" My face must have changed completely when I talked about Marcus, because Dr. Chen's expression softened. "He sees me. Actually sees me not as Emma's sister or Catherine's disappointing daughter, but as Faye. When we met at that conference, he asked about my research, my thoughts, my dreams. He didn't even know I had a sister until our third date because I was so used to hiding her existence to protect things I cared about. And how has he handled this current situation?" "He's been incredible," I said, remembering how he'd held me on the apartment floor. "He doesn't try to fix it or minimize it. He just supports whatever I decide. His family has been wonderful, too. They're baffled by the whole thing. His mother asked me if my family understands that weddings aren't a competition." Dr. Chen leaned back, studying me with those perceptive eyes. "Faye, what you're describing is a pattern of narcissistic abuse. Your sister appears to have developed narcissistic traits likely encouraged by your mother's enabling behavior. You've been cast in the role of the scapegoat existing to provide supply for their egos, while never being allowed to overshadow the golden child. Hearing it labeled so clinically felt like permission to stop doubting my own perceptions. It's real that I'm not being dramatic or selfish. Expecting to have your own wedding date without family sabotage is not dramatic, Dr. Chen said firmly. Refusing to give up your plans to accommodate someone who deliberately copied them is not selfish. These are basic boundaries that healthy families respect without question. So what do I do? I asked, desperate for someone to hand me a roadmap out of this maze. Bart, first you recognize that their behavior is about them, not you. Your mother likely has her own unresolved trauma from being overlooked in her family, and she's unconsciously recreating that dynamic with you and Emma. Emma has been trained from birth to see you as competition rather than a sister. None of this is your fault or your responsibility to fix. I pulled out my phone, showing her the list I'd started that morning. I wrote down every major event I can remember that Emma took over. There are 47 items, and I know I'm forgetting more. Dr. Chen reviewed the list, her expression growing more concerned with each entry. This is systematic emotional abuse, Faye. The fact that you survived this with your ability to form healthy relationships intact is remarkable. Many people in your situation develop such trust issues that they can't let anyone close. I almost didn't, I admitted. Before Marcus, I dated men who treated me like an afterthought because that felt familiar. It took him months to convince me I deserved someone who showed up just for me, not because I came with access to something else they wanted. And now they're trying to take your wedding, Dr. Chen said. The first major life event that's entirely yours, celebrated with someone who chose you first. Of course they can't tolerate that. It disrupts the entire family system they've built on your subjugation. The word subjugation hit like a physical blow, but it was accurate. I'd been subjugated to Emma's needs, Catherine's ego, and the family myth that this was normal, even noble. The good daughter sacrifices, the loving sister steps aside. The mature one doesn't make waves, except the waves had been building for 28 years, and my wedding had become the breaking point. I won't give them June 15th. I said the words coming from somewhere deep and unmovable. I can't. If I give in now, it never ends. Emma will want my house when I buy one, claim my children's names if I have them, probably show up at the hospital when I'm in labor to announce her own pregnancy. There's no end point to appeasement. That's a crucial realization, Dr. Chen affirmed. Appeasement with narcissistic abuse only leads to escalating demands. By standing firm, you're not just protecting your wedding date, you're breaking a generational pattern. That evening, I sat with Marcus on our balcony, sharing what I'd discovered in therapy. He listened without interrupting, holding my hand as I explained terms like narcissistic supply and scapegoat dynamics. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You know what strikes me most, he finally said, how they've made you feel guilty for having completely reasonable expectations, like you're the villain in this story for wanting your own wedding day. Dr. Chen called it gaslighting, Bassam, I said, making me question my own reality until I genuinely wondered if I was being selfish. You're the least selfish person I know, Marcus said firmly. You volunteer at the literacy center every Saturday. You stayed late for 3 months to help the new hire learn the systems. You remembered my mother's birthday before I did and sent flowers. Selfish people don't do those things. But with Emma, you've been trained to disappear, he finished, and she's so used to you vanishing that your sudden visibility is threatening her entire worldview. My phone buzzed with a text from Grandmother Ruth. Dinner tomorrow night. Just us. I have something important to share. I showed Marcus the message. Think she's going to try to talk me into compromising? Your grandmother, Marcus laughed, the woman who stood up to your mother in front of everyone and declared she was funding our wedding, I think she's more likely to offer battle strategies. He was right, of course. Grandmother Ruth had been the lone voice of sanity in that family meeting, the only one to call out the dysfunction directly. If anyone understood what I was facing, it would be her. I need to make a list, I decided, pulling out my laptop. Everyone who's genuinely supportive versus those who are pushing Emma's agenda. I need to know who my real allies are. We spent the next hour creating a comprehensive document. The supportive column was shorter but solid. Grandmother Ruth Marcus's entire family, my friends Lisa and Janet, my boss Sharon, surprisingly my father's brother James, who'd called after the lunch ambush to say he'd been pressured into attending and didn't agree with the tactics. Even Dr. Chen's name went on the list as a professional support. The other column was longer and more painful to write. Extended family who'd known me since birth but chose Emma's tears over truth. Friends from high school who jumped on Emma's social media bandwagon without even asking for my side. The cousin I'd once considered close who was now Emma's chief flying monkey, spreading lies about my mental breakdown. "This is my real family," I said, pointing to the short column. "These are the people who will celebrate our wedding with genuine joy, not obligation or manipulation." "Then these are the only people who matter," Marcus said simply. "The rest are just noise." That night, I made another decision. I pulled out a fresh notebook and began writing down everything I could remember about the abuse, creating a comprehensive record. Not for revenge or ammunition, but for clarity. For the moments when they'd inevitably make me doubt myself again, for the future children who deserved to know why mommy didn't have a relationship with certain family members, for my own healing. As I wrote, patterns emerged I'd never consciously recognized. Emma's illnesses that flared whenever attention shifted away from her. Catherine's revisionist history that painted me as difficult while erasing her favoritism. The extended family's complicity in maintaining the dysfunction because it was easier than confronting it. Page after page filled with memories, I'd suppressed each one a tile in the mosaic of systematic emotional abuse I'd endured. But something else emerged too, my own strength. The little girl who'd hidden library books so Emma wouldn't demand them had grown into a woman who earned her own scholarships. The teenager who'd learned to want things quietly had become someone who built a successful career. The daughter trained to disappear had found a partner who saw her clearly and chose her daily. I wasn't broken. I was breaking free. The decision solidified like concrete setting in the sun. I would not give them June 15th. I would not apologize for having boundaries. I would not sacrifice my joy to maintain their dysfunction. The wedding would happen as planned, with or without them. And if that meant uninviting my own mother and sister, if that meant being labeled the family villain, if that meant losing relationships that were conditional on my compliance, then so be it. For 28 years, I'd paid the price for family peace with pieces of myself. The bill had finally come due, and I was done paying. June 15th was mine, my wedding. My choice, my life. And anyone who couldn't accept that had shown me exactly where I stood in their priorities. The war wasn't over. If anything, my resolve would escalate their tactics. But sitting there with my notebook full of truth and my partner beside me, I felt something I'd never experienced in my family home powerful. They'd created a victim, but I was choosing to be a survivor. And survivors don't surrender their wedding dates or their worth to anyone. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a full 10 minutes before I found the courage to type. 3 days had passed since my therapy session. 3 days of crystallized resolve and sleepless nights preparing for the nuclear option. Marcus sat beside me at our dining table, his presence steady as a lighthouse, while I prepared to detonate 28 years of dysfunction with a single email. "You don't have to do this today," he offered gently, but we both knew delay would only give them more time to escalate their campaign. "Yes, I do," I said, finding strength in the certainty. Every day I wait is another day. They poison more relationships, spread more lies, plan more ambushes. It ends now. The email took 2 hours to craft, each word chosen for clarity and documentation. I'd learned from Dr. Chen that when dealing with narcissistic abuse, written communication created an evidence trail they couldn't distort later. No more face-to-face confrontations where Emma could fake medical emergencies or Catherine could claim I'd said things I hadn't. To Catherine and Emma, I began formal as a legal document because that's essentially what this was, a declaration of independence. After extensive reflection and professional guidance, I've made the difficult decision to rescind your invitations to my wedding on June 15th. This decision comes after the following documented incidents. 1. Your attempted booking of my exact wedding venue and date without my knowledge or consent. 2. The orchestrated family meeting where my relationship was demeaned and my fiancé insulted via PowerPoint presentation. 3. Multiple attempts to manipulate extended family members against me through false claims about my mental health. 4. The morning ambush at my apartment involving fake medical emergencies designed to coerce compliance. 5. A lifetime pattern of expecting me to sacrifice my milestones, achievements, and joy to accommodate Emma's desires. This is not a decision made in anger, but in self-preservation. A wedding should be a celebration of love surrounded by those who genuinely support the union. Your actions have demonstrated an inability to provide that support. I am also implementing the following boundaries. No contact with me directly until after the wedding. No attempts to manipulate other guests or vendors. No social media posts about me, my wedding, or my relationship. Any violation of these boundaries will result in legal action for harassment. I hope someday we can rebuild a relationship based on mutual respect rather than enforced hierarchy. Until then, I wish you both well in your separate lives. Faye. It's perfect, Marcus said after reading it through. Clear, factual, no room for misinterpretation. They'll still twist it. I predicted, knowing how Catherine's mind worked. I'll become the daughter who banned her own mother from her wedding. Emma will be the innocent victim who just wanted to share her sister's joy. Then let them, he said firmly. Anyone who believes their version without asking for yours isn't someone you want at our wedding anyway. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then immediately sent copies to Grandmother Ruth and Uncle James, ensuring Catherine couldn't claim the email said something different. The digital swoosh felt like cutting an anchor chain that had been drowning me slowly for decades. 27 minutes later, my phone exploded. I'd anticipated this and had already silenced notifications from Catherine and Emma, but the calls and texts from other numbers poured in like a tsunami. Marcus fielded them while I sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, despite the warm evening processing what I'd just done. Your Aunt Martha, he reported, declining the call. Fourth attempt in 10 minutes. Your cousin Patricia, unknown number, that's probably Emma calling from a friend's phone. Another unknown number, your father. Should I answer your father? Not yet, I decided. Robert had been silent through most of this conflict, his complicity through inaction as damaging as Catherine's active abuse. If he wanted to talk, he could send a text like an adult, rather than expecting immediate access to smooth things over. The social media assault began within the hour. Emma predictably posted a series of increasingly hysterical messages. Just found out I'm banned from my only sister's wedding. 25 years of love and memories destroyed because I dared to want a summer wedding too. My heart is shattered into a million pieces. How do you heal from this kind of betrayal? The comments flooded in a mix of Emma's flying monkeys, offering sympathy, and confusion from mutual acquaintances who sensed something didn't add up. Then Emma made a tactical error. She posted a screenshot of my email, thinking the formal language would make me look cold and calculating. Instead, my clear documentation of her behavior sparked different responses. Oh, wait, you tried to book her venue without asking? One high school friend wrote. They had a PowerPoint about why your fiancé is better. That's insane, added another. Emma quickly deleted the post, but screenshots had already been taken and were circulating. Marcus's brother, a social media strategist, had been monitoring everything and capturing evidence. The narrative Emma had carefully crafted was starting to crack. Catherine's response came 3 hours later, not through email, but via a Facebook post tagged to ensure maximum visibility among our extended family and her social circle. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, weaving truth with lies so skillfully that even I almost believed her version. It is with a heavy heart that I share news of our family's tragedy. She began, as if announcing a death rather than receiving boundaries. My eldest daughter, who I've loved and supported for 28 years, has chosen to exclude her mother and sister from her wedding. This decision, following what we believe to be a mental health crisis, has left us devastated, but still hoping for reconciliation. We ask for privacy during this difficult time and prayers that Faye receives the help she clearly needs. Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of, and we stand ready to support her when she's ready to accept it. The post was accompanied by a carefully curated selection of photos Emma and me as children looking happy and close. Catherine hugging me at my college graduation, a recent family photo where I was smiling, unaware it would be weaponized later. To anyone who didn't know better, it looked like a loving mother concerned about her troubled daughter. Should we respond? Marcus asked, his jaw tight with anger. Not yet. I decided, though, my hands shook with the effort of restraint. Let them show their true colors. The people who matter will ask for my side. The rest were never really allies anyway. Uncle James called an hour later, and this time I answered. His voice was tired but resolute. I saw the email and Catherine's post. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. I've watched this dynamic for years and said nothing. I'm ashamed of that. Thank you. I managed throat tight with unexpected emotion. I'll be at your wedding if you'll still have me, he continued, and I'll make it clear to anyone who asks that I support your decision. It's time someone in this family stood up to Catherine's bullying. Of course you're still invited, I assured him. You were never part of the problem. I was silent, which made me complicit, he corrected gently. But not anymore. Do you need anything security for the wedding? I know a discreet firm. I hadn't even considered that they might try to crash the wedding, but of course they would. Catherine wouldn't let such a public rejection stand without attempting to reclaim control. That might be wise, I admitted. The next call was from Brian, Emma's fiancé. Marcus put it on speaker at my nod. Faye, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to understand what's happening. Emma's been inconsolable, but her story keeps changing, and I found some concerning things on her Pinterest. What kind of things? I asked carefully. Boards dating back months with your exact wedding plans, screenshots of your venue, your dress designer, even your cake flavors. She told me she'd just had similar taste, but this looks like... He trailed off. Like she deliberately copied everything I finished for him. Yeah, he said quietly, and some of the things in your email about the apartment visit and fake medical emergency, I was there for the planning. She practiced the fainting, said it would definitely make you cave. I thought she was joking, but now... She wasn't joking, I confirmed. This is a pattern going back our entire lives. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of it. I'm sorry too, Brian said, and something in his voice suggested he was apologizing for more than just the phone call. Thanks for being honest with me. I have some thinking to do. After he hung up, Marcus and I sat in stunned silence. Emma's own fiancé was questioning her behavior. The careful facade she'd maintained was crumbling from multiple directions. My phone buzzed with a text from grandmother Ruth. Proud of you, sweetheart. Stay strong. Catherine is threatening to contest my financial support of your wedding, claiming undue influence. My lawyer finds this hilarious. See you for dinner tomorrow as planned. Oh, she's trying to legally block your grandmother from paying for our wedding, Marcus asked incredulously. She's desperate, I realized. The uninvitation took away her control, so she's flailing for any leverage. Lisa and Janet arrived an hour later with wine and Thai food, forming a protective circle around me as we watched the social media drama unfold. They'd both shared their own responses to Catherine's post politely, but firmly sharing their perspective as my actual friends who'd witnessed years of favoritism and emotional abuse. Other voices joined theirs, creating a counter-narrative Catherine couldn't control. You know what the best part is, Janet said, raising her wine glass. You're free now. No more pretending at holidays. No more shrinking yourself to make Emma comfortable. No more Catherine's passive-aggressive comments about your choices. You're free. She was right. The uninvitation had cost me relationships that were already fractured, but it had given me something priceless: freedom from the exhausting performance of pretending we were a happy family. Freedom from the constant anxiety of waiting for the next ambush. Freedom to have my wedding surrounded by people who actually celebrated my joy rather than resenting it. That night, as Marcus and I prepared for bed, I checked my email one final time. Between the vitriol and flying monkey attacks was a message from my venue coordinator. Hi, Faye, just wanted to let you know someone called claiming to be you and trying to cancel your reservation. We followed protocol and requested the security password, which they couldn't provide. Your June 15th booking remains secure. We've also flagged your account for extra verification on any changes. Looking forward to your beautiful day. They tried to cancel our venue, I told Marcus, showing him the email. Of course they did, he said, pulling me close. But you were prepared. You protected everything that matters. He was right. I'd password protected all our vendors after Jessica's warning weeks ago. Every attempt they made to sabotage the wedding only created more evidence of their malicious intent. The uninvitation wasn't just about protecting our wedding day. It was about documenting the pattern of abuse for anyone who cared to see the truth. As I drifted off to sleep, my phone continued buzzing with messages I'd deal with tomorrow. Some would be attacks, some would be support, but none would change the fundamental truth I'd finally chosen myself. June 15th would happen without Catherine and Emma, and maybe that's exactly how it was meant to be. A celebration of breaking free, of choosing love over manipulation, of building a life where I was the protagonist of my own story instead of a supporting character in Emma's. The war wasn't over. Their extinction burst was just beginning. But I'd thrown down the gauntlet with clear boundaries and consequences, something they'd never expected from the compliant daughter they'd trained to disappear. And that, more than any wedding date, was my first real victory. The call from Human Resources came on a Tuesday morning, 6 days after the uninvitation email. Sharon, my boss, had warned me something was brewing when she'd pulled me aside the previous afternoon, her expression grim. Faye, I need you to know that someone has been calling the company, making serious allegations about your mental state. I don't believe a word of it, but HR has protocols they have to follow. Sitting across from Linda, our HR director, I felt the surreal sensation of my personal life invading my professional world. Linda's expression was carefully neutral as she opened a file folder filled with printed emails and documented phone calls. Faye, we've received multiple contacts from someone claiming to be your mother, expressing concern about your psychological fitness for work. Linda began, her tone professional but not unkind. The caller has alleged that you're experiencing paranoid delusions, violent outbursts, and that you might pose a danger to your coworkers. Let me guess, I said, fighting to keep my voice level. She's a concerned mother who just wants what's best for her daughter and thinks professional intervention might help. Linda's lips twitched slightly, almost verbatim. I take it this isn't a surprise. My mother is trying to force me to give my wedding date to my sister, I explained, feeling like I was describing a soap opera plot rather than my life. When I refused and uninvited them from the wedding, they escalated to trying to destroy my life. We've also received calls from a woman claiming to be your sister, saying you've stolen money from your grandmother and are using it to fund a lavish wedding you can't afford. Linda pulled out another sheet. She provided surprising detail about your salary and expenses information that should be private. My blood ran cold. Emma had always been nosy, but accessing my financial information crossed a legal line. How could she possibly know my salary? That's what we're wondering, Linda said meaningfully. We're investigating whether there's been a breach of our payroll system. In the meantime, I need to ask you some questions for our documentation. I want to be clear based on your work performance, and what I'm seeing here, I believe you're the victim of harassment, but I need to follow procedure. The questions were invasive but necessary. Had I experienced any recent trauma that might affect my work? Was I taking any medications that could impair judgment? Did I have any history of mental health concerns? I answered, honestly mentioning my recent therapy sessions with Dr. Chen and offering to provide her contact information if needed. I'm seeing a therapist to deal with family trauma and establishing boundaries, I said clearly. If that's a mental health issue, then it's one I'm actively addressing in the healthiest way possible. Sharon joined us halfway through bringing my performance reviews for the past 3 years. Faye is one of our strongest developers, she stated firmly. She's never had a single disciplinary action, consistently receives excellent reviews, and just last month was commended for mentoring our new hires. Any suggestion that she's unfit for work is absolutely ridiculous. I agree, Linda said, closing the file. Faye, I'm documenting this as external harassment. We'll be sending a cease and desist letter to the contact information your mother provided. If she continues, we'll involve law enforcement. We take the safety and well-being of our employees seriously, including protecting them from malicious actors, even if those actors are family members. I left the meeting shaking with a combination of rage and relief. Catherine had tried to destroy my career, the one thing I'd built entirely separate from her influence. But she'd underestimated my workplace, forgetting that not everyone would blindly believe a concerned mother act without investigation. The smear campaign wasn't limited to my job. That evening, Marcus showed me a series of emails his parents had received. Catherine had somehow obtained their contact information and sent a lengthy message warning them about my unstable behavior and suggesting they encourage Marcus to postpone the wedding until I received treatment. She'd included cherry-picked text messages where I'd expressed frustration about Emma presenting them without context to paint me as irrationally angry. My mom wants to know if she should respond with her lawyer's contact information or just forward everything to the police. Marcus said, his dark humor not quite masking his fury. She's leaning toward both. Your parents are amazing, I said, grateful beyond words that his family saw through the manipulation. They've dealt with difficult people before, he reminded me. My dad's sister tried something similar when my parents got engaged. Claimed my mom was a gold digger after the family business. Turns out projection is common with these types, since my aunt was the one stealing from the company. They recognize the playbook. Emma's social media campaign had evolved into something more sinister. She'd created a private Facebook group called Supporting Faye Through Crisis, where she posted increasingly elaborate lies about my behavior. According to the screenshots cousin Jessica sent me, I'd apparently threatened Emma with violence, stolen her wedding ideas out of spite, and manipulated our grandmother into cutting off the rest of the family. The group had 43 members, all being fed a steady diet of fabricated victimhood. She's claiming you showed up at her workplace and caused a scene, Jessica reported during a phone call, complete with security footage that mysteriously can't be produced because of privacy concerns. People are starting to question her stories, though. The details keep changing. The fake wedding website Emma created was the next escalation. She'd purchased a domain similar to ours and built an elaborate site announcing that the Thompson-Chen wedding was canceled due to family health concerns. The site included photos stolen from my social media, edited to look somber, and a lengthy statement about hoping for healing and reconciliation. She then sent the link to our extended family and several of our vendors. Fortunately, our actual wedding website was password protected, and vendors had been warned about potential sabotage. Our photographer actually called to laugh about it. Someone sent me a very official-looking cancellation notice from a website that spelled your name wrong 3 different ways. Just wanted to confirm you're not actually canceling and to let you know I've screenshotted everything for your records. The lowest blow came through the mail. A thick envelope with no return address contained printed screenshots of a blog Emma had created called Surviving Sibling Abuse. Post after post detailed fictional accounts of my supposed cruelty dating back to childhood. According to Emma's revisionist history, I'd bullied her throughout school, sabotaged her relationships, and tried to turn our parents against her out of jealousy. Each post was dated to make it look like she'd been documenting this for years, though metadata would prove they'd all been created in the past week. "Shub, she's building a case," Marcus observed, reading through the posts with a lawyer's analytical eye. "This isn't just revenge. She's creating a paper trail to justify whatever she's planning next." He was right. The systematic nature of the smear campaign suggested Emma and Catherine were working from a playbook, possibly with legal advice of their own. Every lie was crafted to be just plausible enough, mixing real events with fictional interpretations. They were trying to establish a pattern of behavior that didn't exist, hoping repetition would make it real. Dr. Chen called an emergency session after I forwarded her the blog posts. "This is escalation to a concerning degree," she said, her usual calm demeanor cracked with worry. "They're not just trying to punish you anymore. They're trying to rewrite history itself. Have you considered a restraining order?" "Would it even work?" I asked, exhausted by the thought of legal battles on top of wedding planning. "It would create official documentation of their harassment," she explained. "Right now, they're counting on this staying a family matter where they control the narrative. Legal intervention changes that dynamic." That night, unable to sleep, I made a decision. If they wanted to create a digital paper trail, I'd create my own. I started a private blog documenting every incident with screenshots, emails, and recordings, not for public consumption, but as evidence. Each entry included dates, times, and witness information, the security footage from our apartment showing Emma's fake fainting spell, the emails to my employer, the fraudulent websites, the vendor cancellation attempts. "You're building a case too," Marcus noted, adding his own documentation to the file. "I'm building the truth," I corrected. "They can create all the fictional narratives they want. I have reality on my side." The blog posts Emma created had an unexpected consequence. Several family members who'd been neutral started reaching out, disturbed by the vitriol. "This doesn't sound like the Faye I know," my second cousin Marie texted. "The examples Emma gives don't match any family events I remember. What's really going on?" I sent Marie the timeline I'd created, showing how Emma's wedding planning coincided with mine, how she'd tried to book my vendors, how the family meeting had been an ambush. Marie's response was immediate. "Oh my God, she's trying to steal your wedding. This is insane. Count me as Team Faye. Do you need anything?" Slowly, the tide began turning. The more Catherine and Emma escalated, the more their masks slipped. People who'd initially bought the Concerned Mother Act started noticing inconsistencies. Why would a loving mother call her daughter's employer? Why would a devoted sister create a hate blog? The extreme measures revealed the malice behind them. Brian called again late one evening, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "I ended things with Emma today. Found out she'd been using my hospital credentials to access medical databases. She was trying to find something, anything to support her claims about your mental health. That's not just crossing a line, it's criminal." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. Whatever Brian's flaws, he didn't deserve to be collateral damage in Emma's war against me. "Don't be..." he said firmly. You tried to warn me at that family meeting. The way your mother talked about Marcus, the way Emma performed her tears, I should have seen it then. She can't stand anyone else being happy if she's not the center of it. That's not a partner, that's a parasite. The smear campaign raged for 2 more weeks each day, bringing new lies and manipulation attempts. Catherine tried to contact my college alumni association with concerns about my mental health. Emma attempted to hack my social media accounts to post evidence of my breakdown. They contacted Marcus's employer, our wedding venue, even the charity where I volunteered spreading their poison wherever they thought it might take root. But for every attack, support emerged from unexpected places. My workplace implemented additional security measures and offered me their full backing. Marcus's family created a united front threatening legal action if the harassment continued. Friends I hadn't heard from in years reached out after seeing Emma's posts, recognizing the manipulation and offering their support. Even some of Catherine's own siblings began questioning her behavior, with Aunt Martha eventually calling to apologize for the ambush lunch. I've been thinking about what you said, Martha admitted, about us never asking Emma to sacrifice for you. You were right. I can't find a single example. That's not normal, and I'm ashamed I participated in perpetuating it. The smear campaign ultimately revealed more about Catherine and Emma than it did about me. Their willingness to destroy my life over a wedding date showed the depth of their entitlement and cruelty. But it also showed me something else. I was stronger than they'd trained me to believe. I had built a life they couldn't tear down with lies, surrounded myself with people who saw through manipulation and found my voice after 28 years of silence. As the weeks passed and June 15th approached, their attacks grew more desperate but less effective. They'd played all their cards, revealed all their weapons, and found them insufficient against the simple power of truth and boundaries. The smear campaign hadn't destroyed me. It had liberated me, burning away the last vestiges of obligation I might have felt toward people who viewed my happiness as a threat to their control. The wedding would go forward. June 15th would arrive, and Catherine and Emma would watch from a distance they'd created, with their own malice learning too late that the daughter and sister they'd tried to erase had finally fully stopped disappearing. Jessica Martinez had been my friend since college, but I'd never fully appreciated her legal brilliance until she arrived at our apartment with a leather portfolio and the determined expression of someone ready for war. 3 weeks into Catherine and Emma's smear campaign, she'd called offering her services pro bono. I've watched them torment you for years, she'd said. Let me help you end this properly. Spread across our dining table were printed screenshots, emails, documentation of every harassment attempt, and a legal pad where Jessica had been taking notes for the past hour. Marcus sat beside me occasionally, adding technical details about the digital evidence we'd preserved. The coffee had gone cold, but none of us noticed. The blog posts are defamation, Jessica stated, tapping the printouts of Emma's fictional abuse narrative, provably false statements that have damaged your reputation and caused emotional distress. The calls to your employer, tortious interference with business relations, the attempts to cancel your vendor's fraud, and accessing Brian's hospital credentials to search medical databases. She smiled grimly. That's a federal crime. I don't want to destroy them, I said, though part of me wondered if that was entirely true. I just want them to stop. The best way to make them stop is to show them the consequences of continuing, Jessica explained. Right now, they're operating under the assumption that family loyalty will prevent you from taking legal action. We need to disabuse them of that notion. She pulled out a cease and desist letter she drafted. It was a masterpiece of legal precision, documenting each instance of harassment with corresponding evidence and potential legal consequences. The letter made clear that continued actions would result in both civil and criminal proceedings. We send this certified mail to both Catherine and Emma with copies to any third parties they've involved, Jessica explained. It creates an official record and puts them on notice. If they continue after receiving this, it strengthens any future legal action. Marcus's brother David arrived while we were reviewing the letter. As a social media strategist, he'd been monitoring Emma's online activity and had discovered something interesting. She's been buying followers and engagement for her posts, he announced, showing us analytics data. Those hundreds of sympathetic comments, most are from bot accounts or click farms. She's literally paying to create the illusion of support. Can we prove that Jessica asked, immediately seeing the legal implications? Already documented, David confirmed. I've traced the payment patterns and identified the services she used. She spent over $3,000 manufacturing outrage against Faye. We decided on a multi-pronged approach. While Jessica handled the legal aspects, David would create a comprehensive document exposing the social media manipulation. I would continue building my evidence file, and Marcus would coordinate with our vendors to ensure they remained secure. What about grandmother Ruth? I asked. Catherine threatened to challenge her financial support legally. Jessica actually laughed. I spoke with Ruth's attorney yesterday. Your grandmother is sharp as a tack and has everything properly documented. The money is hers to distribute as she wishes, and she's already taken steps to ensure Catherine can't touch it. In fact, she's considering restructuring her entire estate plan in light of recent events. The cease and desist letters were sent the next day. Within 6 hours, Catherine had called 17 times and sent dozens of texts, ranging from rage to manipulation to threats of her own legal action. We didn't respond to any of them, following Jessica's advice to let the formal communication stand on its own. Emma's reaction was more strategic. She immediately made her social media profiles private and deleted the defamatory blog, though not before we'd preserved everything. She then created a new public post about being silenced by legal threats and rich people using lawyers to hide their crimes. The irony of Emma, who'd bragged about Brian's surgeon salary for months, claiming poverty against me, was not lost on anyone paying attention. She's panicking, David observed, showing me the metadata from her deleted content. She's trying to erase evidence while simultaneously playing victim. Classic manipulation tactic, but sloppy execution. Our photographer, Serena, called with an interesting development. Hey, Faye, just thought you should know someone approached me at a wedding expo yesterday, said they were a friend of yours and tried to pump me for information about your wedding details, security timeline, that sort of thing. I played dumb and got their contact info. She texted me a photo of the business card. It was a private investigator. They hired someone to surveil our wedding, Marcus asked incredulously. They're looking for a way in, Jessica said, adding this to her notes, either to crash the wedding or gather information for their next move. Good thing we're already planning security. The security firm Uncle James had recommended was thorough and discreet. They reviewed the venue layout, identified potential vulnerabilities, and created a comprehensive plan that included checkpoint screening and specific photos of Catherine and Emma for the watch list. It felt like planning security for a celebrity wedding rather than a simple barn ceremony, but the peace of mind was worth it. While we built our defenses, allies emerged from unexpected places. The morning show producer who'd ambushed Emma with hard questions reached out through Marcus's cousin. I heard there's more to this story, she said during our phone call. If you're ever interested in setting the record straight publicly, I'd love to help. Sometimes the best disinfectant for toxic family dynamics is sunlight. I declined for the moment, but kept her contact information. The truth was spreading organically through our network without needing media intervention. Every vendor Emma had tried to manipulate shared their story with others in the industry. Each family member who'd seen through the lies spoke to others. The narrative Catherine and Emma had tried to control was fracturing from multiple directions. Dr. Chen introduced a new element during our session that week. Have you considered the possibility that this isn't their first campaign like this? Patterns this sophisticated don't usually emerge in isolation. Her words sparked a memory. When I was in high school, there was a girl in Emma's grade who transferred schools suddenly. Emma had been in competition with her for some leadership position. There were rumors. Might be worth investigating, Dr. Chen suggested gently, not for ammunition, but for understanding. If this is a pattern, others might have similar experiences and insights. Marcus took on that research project with his characteristic thoroughness. Within days, he'd connected with 3 women who'd had concerning experiences with Emma throughout her academic and professional career. Each story followed a similar pattern: initial friendship, growing competition, then targeted harassment until the victim withdrew. One woman still has PTSD from what Emma put her through in college. Marcus reported, his expression grim. She said Emma created fake social media accounts to spread rumors about her, contacted her professors with concerns, even tried to get her kicked out of her sorority. Sound familiar? We added these testimonies to our file not for public use, but as evidence of patterned behavior if legal action became necessary. Each story strengthened our resolve and validated my decision to enforce boundaries. The counter strategy expanded beyond defense to proactive measures. We created our own narrative through actions rather than words. Our wedding website featured a password-protected blog where we shared genuine updates with invited guests, creating a sense of exclusive celebration that emphasized who was included rather than who wasn't. We sent personalized notes to each guest, thanking them for their support, strengthening bonds with those who'd chosen truth over manipulation. Marcus's parents hosted an engagement party for their side of the family, deliberately scheduled for the same evening as an event Catherine had planned to rally family support. The contrast was stark. While Catherine's gathering devolved into bitter complaints and rehearsed grievances, our celebration radiated genuine joy. Photos from both events circulated through the family network, making clear which side offered happiness versus toxicity. "The best revenge is a life well lived," Grandmother Ruth said during dinner at her house. "Your mother is learning that the hard way. She's exhausted herself trying to destroy something she can't touch: your happiness." She was right. For every move Catherine and Emma made, we responded not with equal venom, but with documentation, boundaries, and continued wedding planning. Their fury intensified as June 15th approached, but their power diminished. They'd expected me to crumble, to beg for reconciliation, to sacrifice my wedding for family peace. Instead, I'd lawyer up, locked down, and moved forward. The final piece of our counter-strategy came from an unexpected source. Robert, my father, had maintained his characteristic silence throughout the conflict until one evening when he called from his car. "I'm leaving your mother," he said without preamble, "not just because of this wedding situation, but because it's made me realize how many years I've enabled her treatment of you. I've been a coward, Faye, and I'm sorry. I'm meeting with a divorce attorney tomorrow." The shock of his words left me speechless. Marcus took the phone, handling the practical details, while I processed this seismic shift. My father, who'd spent my entire life deferring to Catherine's wishes, had finally found his spine. "I want to come to your wedding if you'll have me," Robert continued. "Not to walk you down the aisle, I know that privilege belongs to Ruth now. Just to be there supporting you the way I should have all along." "We'll think about it," Marcus told him, knowing I needed time to process this development. The cease and desist letter had been our opening move, but the comprehensive strategy we'd built turned their war into our victory. By refusing to engage on their terms, documenting everything, and building our own narrative of boundary setting and healthy relationships, we'd transformed their attack into an opportunity for growth and clarity. As May turned toward June, Catherine and Emma's attempts grew more desperate but less effective. They'd lost allies, exposed their true nature, and discovered that the daughter and sister they'd underestimated had more strength and support than they'd ever imagined. The counter strategy hadn't just protected our wedding. It had revealed the solid foundation of the life we'd built together, one that no amount of manipulation could shake. The final weeks before the wedding would bring new challenges and last-minute extinction bursts, but we were ready, armed with truth, backed by genuine supporters, and protected by both legal boundaries and the simple power of refusing to play their games. June 15th would arrive as scheduled, and we would celebrate surrounded by those who truly wished us well. The counter strategy had worked not because we'd fought fire with fire, but because we'd fought lies with truth, manipulation with boundaries, and hatred with the radical act of continuing to plan our joy. The phone call came on a Saturday morning 3 weeks before the wedding. Brian's name on my caller ID was unexpected enough, but his first words made me sit down hard on the kitchen stool. "Emma's been lying about everything. Not just to you, to me, to everyone. I need you to know what I've discovered." His voice carried the hollow tone of someone whose reality had shattered. "Can we meet? I have documents you need to see." 2 hours later, we sat in a quiet corner of a coffee shop downtown, far from anywhere Emma might appear. Brian looked haggard with the glazed expression of someone who'd been sleeping poorly. He pushed a folder across the table with trembling hands. After I found out about her accessing the hospital databases, I started looking deeper. He began, his surgeon's hands unusually unsteady around his coffee cup. I hired a forensic accountant to review her finances, thinking maybe she had shopping addiction or something that explained her behavior. What he found was so much worse. I opened the folder to find bank statements, credit reports, and a detailed financial analysis. Emma had been living a double life funded by fraud and deception on a scale that took my breath away. Multiple credit cards opened using variations of family members' information. Loans taken out against assets she didn't own. Even a fraudulent business registration, claiming to be a wedding planning company, which she'd used to get wholesale accounts with vendors. "She owes over $200,000, Brian said quietly. "The engagement ring she's been flashing around. She bought it herself using a credit card she opened in your grandmother's name. The deposits she claimed to have put down for wedding venues, all paid with stolen credit or bounced checks that haven't cleared yet." My hands shook as I absorbed the information. This went far beyond sibling rivalry or narcissistic behavior. This was criminal enterprise, and suddenly her desperation to steal my wedding made horrible sense. She needed a real wedding to happen to cover for all the lies she'd been telling, all the money she'd been stealing. "Yeah, there's more," Brian continued, pulling out his phone. "I confronted her about the financial fraud last week. She didn't know I was recording." He played an audio file where Emma's voice, stripped of its usual sweetness, revealed the monster beneath. "You think I care about your moral concerns," Emma's recorded voice sneered. "I've been planning this wedding since before I even met you. Faye had the perfect setup, the perfect vendors, the perfect date. Why should I have to start from scratch when I could just take hers? She's always been the weak one. A little pressure and she always caves. Except this time, the bitch grew a spine." "And the money?" Brian's voice on the recording asked. Temporary loans," Emma laughed. "Once we're married and I have access to your accounts, I'll pay it all back. Plus, Catherine promised me I'd inherit everything anyway, once she writes Faye out of the will. God knows Faye doesn't deserve it, acting like she's better than us with her little programmer boyfriend." The recording continued with Emma outlining her plan to crash my wedding, cause a scene that would go viral, and use the attention to launch her fake wedding planning business. She'd been documenting everything, not for legal protection, but for a reality show pitch she'd been shopping around titled Sister Wars Battle for the Perfect Wedding. "She never loved me," Brian said unnecessarily. "I was just a prop in her performance. The surgeon fiancé to make her wedding seem more impressive than yours." "I'm so sorry," I said, meaning it, despite everything. "Don't be," he replied firmly. "You tried to warn me. Everyone tried to warn me, but she was so convincing, so sweet when she wanted to be. I thought the family drama was your fault, because that's what she told me to think. I was an idiot." "You were manipulated by a master," I corrected. "Don't blame yourself for believing someone you loved." Brian had more revelations. He'd reached out to Emma's previous employers after discovering she'd lied about why she left each job. The real reasons ranged from theft to harassment to creating hostile work environments. One former manager was considering pressing charges after learning about the pattern of behavior. She's been doing this her whole life, Brian said. The miracle baby story, I did some digging. Your parents didn't have multiple miscarriages. Catherine had one early loss, which is sadly common. But Emma learned early that being the miracle gave her special status, so she embellished the story over years until even your parents believed the false version. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Major development. Call me ASAP. I excused myself to step outside. Catherine just tried to file a restraining order against you, Jessica said without preamble, claiming harassment and threats of violence. The judge threw it out and threatened to sanction her attorney for filing frivolous claims. But here's the interesting part, she accidentally submitted some of Emma's fraudulent documents as evidence, thinking they were real contracts. She just implicated herself in Emma's crimes. When I returned to the table, Brian was on his phone looking shaken. That was the police, he said. They want me to come in for questioning. Someone used my medical credentials to write false prescriptions. 3 guesses who? The dominoes were falling faster than anyone could have predicted. Emma's house of cards, built on years of lies and theft, was collapsing spectacularly. Within days, the story spread through our extended family and social circles. The fictional narrative of poor, victimized Emma versus cruel, selfish Faye disintegrated as evidence of Emma's crimes surfaced. Grandmother Ruth called an emergency family meeting, but this time she controlled the venue and guest list. Only those who'd shown discernment during the conflict were invited. In her elegant living room, she presented her own investigation's findings. I hired a private investigator the moment Catherine threatened to challenge my financial support, Ruth announced to the stunned gathering. What he found goes back decades. Catherine has been enabling Emma's behavior since childhood, covering up thefts from classmates, bullying incidents, even a shoplifting arrest when Emma was 17 that Catherine paid to make disappear. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Uncle James looked particularly stunned. The family reunion fund that went missing 5 years ago? Emma, Ruth confirmed. She accessed the account information from Catherine's files and drained it. Catherine knew but blamed it on a banking error. Aunt Martha, who'd organized the ambush lunch, looked physically ill. I helped them try to force Faye to give up her wedding. Oh God, what have I done? You were manipulated, I said, finding unexpected grace for those who'd been deceived. They're very good at it. They've had 25 years of practice. The tables hadn't just turned, they'd flipped completely. Those who'd pressured me to sacrifice for family harmony now saw the truth. I hadn't been the problem. I'd been the solution. They'd tried to silence the truth-teller they'd attempted to discredit. Marcus's family group chat lit up with supportive messages as the news spread. His mother posted a particularly satisfying message, reminder that our family has excellent lawyers if anyone needs referrals for both criminal defense and civil suits. Also, Faye, your wedding invitations are beautiful, and we can't wait to celebrate with you properly. Social media told the story of public opinion shifting. Emma's carefully curated victim posts were flooded with comments from people she'd wronged over the years. Former coworkers, college classmates, even someone from her high school drama club shared stories of her manipulation and theft. The support she'd manufactured evaporated as real voices spoke truth. Then came the final blow to Emma's elaborate scheme. The reality show producers she'd been courting leaked their correspondence to an entertainment blog after learning about the fraud. The emails showed Emma pitching increasingly dramatic scenarios for the show, including plans to hire actors to disrupt my wedding for better television drama. The blog post went viral with the headline, "Bride-to-be plans to destroy sister's wedding for reality fame." Catherine's response was predictably delusional. She held a press conference on her front lawn, claiming the entire family was victim of a conspiracy to defame her and Emma. But with Brian providing evidence, criminal investigations beginning, and even Robert filing for divorce while cooperating with authorities, her performance convinced no one. The morning show invitation came through Marcus's cousin, the producer who'd ambushed Emma weeks earlier. She wants another chance to tell her side of the story, Donna explained over the phone. She doesn't know I'm calling you. Wanna watch a narcissist implode on live television? It was 5 days after Brian's revelations had shattered Emma's carefully constructed facade. Criminal investigations were underway. Our family was in upheaval, and Emma, in true form, believed she could manipulate her way out through sheer performance. Marcus and I decided to host a viewing party inviting the core supporters who had stood by us throughout the ordeal. Good Morning Westfield typically featured feel-good segments about local businesses and community events. Emma had pitched herself as a young entrepreneur dealing with family jealousy over her success, conveniently omitting the fraud investigations and failed reality show scheme. The producers, now fully aware of the real story thanks to Dana's research, prepared questions that would seem sympathetic while laying careful traps. We gathered in our living room at 7:30 that morning. Grandmother Ruth arrived with pastries, Uncle James brought champagne for mimosas, and Jessica came armed with a legal pad to document any defamatory statements. Even Robert was there, looking healthier than he had in years since leaving Catherine. The atmosphere felt like waiting for a storm everyone knew was coming, but no one could prevent. Emma appeared on screen in a demure pink dress, her makeup applied to suggest fragile beauty rather than her usual polished perfection. She'd styled herself as the wounded ingenue, a far cry from the calculating manipulator we'd all come to know. The host, Melissa Chen, welcomed her with apparent warmth that didn't quite reach her eyes. Emma, thank you for joining us today. Melissa began her tone professionally neutral. You reached out saying you wanted to share your story about family conflicts around wedding planning. Tell us what's been happening. Emma launched into her prepared narrative with practiced emotion. It's been the hardest time of my life, Melissa. All I wanted was to marry the man I loved, but my sister has turned it into this horrible competition. She's always been jealous of me ever since we were children, and when I got engaged, she just couldn't handle it. Hey, interesting, Melissa said, consulting her notes. Because we've received information that you attempted to book the exact same venues and vendors your sister had already secured. Can you explain that? The first crack appeared in Emma's composure, a slight twitch at the corner of her perfectly glossed lips. Those are misunderstandings. I simply loved similar things. Is it a crime to have good taste? But these booking attempts were made under variations of your sister's name, Melissa pressed gently. We have documentation from several vendors confirming this. Emma's hands fluttered to her throat in a gesture I recognized as her buying time. I might have mentioned I was planning with my sister. We used to be so close before she turned on me. Used to be close? Melissa's eyebrows rose. Multiple sources have told us about an incident in college where you allegedly created false social media accounts to harass a classmate. Another situation at your first job where money went missing from a fundraiser you organized. These patterns suggest... Those are lies! Emma interrupted, her voice pitching higher. People are just jealous of my success. What success would that be? Melissa asked innocently. Your wedding planning business that's registered to a non-existent address, or your position at the pharmaceutical company that terminated you for ethical violations. The mask slipped completely. Emma's face contorted with rage as she realized this wasn't the sympathetic platform she'd expected. You ambushed me. This is defamation. My mother warned me about jealous people trying to tear me down. Speaking of your mother, Melissa continued smoothly, Catherine Henderson recently filed a false restraining order using fraudulent documents that investigators believe you created. Would you like to comment on that? I want my lawyer, Emma shrieked, standing abruptly. Her wireless microphone picked up every word as she continued her meltdown. This is a setup Faye paid you to do, this didn't she? Just like she poisoned Brian against me. She's always been the manipulative one, always playing victim while stealing everything from me. What has your sister stolen from you, Emma? Melissa remained calm as Emma paced the small studio. Everything. Emma was fully unraveling, now years of carefully maintained facade crumbling on live television. She got to be born first. She got all the attention until I came along. She got into better schools, had better jobs, and now she gets the June wedding that should have been mine. I'm the pretty one. I'm the charming one. I deserved it all, not her. The studio fell silent, except for Emma's heavy breathing. Melissa let the moment hang before speaking quietly. Emma, are you saying you tried to take your sister's wedding because you felt entitled to it? Of course I'm entitled to it, Emma screamed. I've always gotten what Faye had, but better. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked, Mom promised me. She promised I'd never have to be second best. And then Faye got engaged first and ruined everything. She was supposed to stay in the background where she belongs. The admission hung in the air like a confession at trial. In our living room, Jessica was scribbling notes while the rest of us watched in stunned silence. Even knowing Emma's true nature, seeing it exposed so completely was shocking. We need to take a commercial break, Melissa announced, maintaining her professional composure as security moved toward the increasingly agitated Emma. The feed cut to commercial, but Donna texted me immediately. She's trying to storm off set, but legal won't let her leave yet. She just admitted to fraud on live TV. The police are en route. When the show returned, Melissa addressed the camera alone. We apologize for the disruption. Our guest has left the studio to address some urgent personal matters. If you or someone you know is dealing with family manipulation or fraud, please reach out to local resources for help. Our living room erupted in a mixture of shock, vindication, and disbelief. Grandmother Ruth raised her mimosa in a toast to the truth finally showing its face, even if that face is ugly as sin. She really said you were supposed to stay in the background, Janet marveled. Out loud, on television, where everyone could hear it. The entitlement was always there, I said, finding my voice. She just never had to hide it before because everyone enabled it. Take away the enabling and this is what's left. Robert looked devastated. We created that. Catherine and I. We made her believe she deserved everything without earning it, that other people existed to serve her needs. God, Faye, I'm so sorry. You're here now, I told him, meaning it. That matters. The explosion continued throughout the day. Clips of Emma's meltdown went viral within hours. I'm the pretty one, I deserved it all, became an instant meme. The wedding planning community shared the footage with warnings about fraudulent vendors. Local news picked up the story, especially once Emma was arrested at the studio for outstanding warrants related to the prescription fraud. Catherine's response was swift and predictable. She posted a rambling Facebook manifesto claiming the media had manipulated her fragile daughter and that the entire appearance had been illegally orchestrated by me. She demanded retractions, threatened lawsuits, and called for boycotts of the morning show. The post was removed within hours for violating community guidelines about harassment, but screenshots circulated widely. Brian released his own statement through his hospital's PR department, professionally distancing himself from Emma while expressing support for fraud victims. He privately texted me, "Thank you for trying to warn me. Watching that meltdown, I realize I got off easy. Can't imagine growing up with that." The wedding vendors who'd been harassed by Emma celebrated her public exposure. Our photographer, Serena, posted, "When someone tries to steal another bride's entire wedding and gets exposed on live TV instead, karma is delicious with morning coffee." The post received thousands of likes from industry professionals who dealt with similar situations. The most surprising response came from Patricia, the therapist cousin who'd participated in the ambush lunch. She called that evening, her voice heavy with professional shame. "I've been replaying everything through a therapeutic lens. The family dynamics, the enabling patterns, Emma's obvious personality disorder that we all ignored. I use my training to harm instead of heal, and I'm deeply sorry. If you need a statement for any legal proceedings about that lunch, I'll provide it." "We're documenting everything," I told her, "but thank you for seeing it now." As the day wound down and our supporters left, Marcus and I sat on our balcony processing the surreal turn of events. Emma had gone on television to paint herself as a victim and instead provided prosecutors with a recorded confession. She tried to control the narrative one last time and instead revealed the ugly truth beneath decades of manipulation. "She'll blame everyone but herself," Marcus predicted. "Even sitting in jail, she'll think she's the victim." "Probably," I agreed, "but she can think that far away from our wedding." The exposure had accomplished something no amount of private confrontation could have achieved. Emma had publicly stripped away her own mask, revealing the entitled, delusional person she'd always been. No one could claim ignorance anymore. No one could pressure me to reconcile for family harmony. The truth was out there in high definition, shared and reshared across the internet. That night, I received messages from 3 different women who'd been Emma's victims over the years. Each thanked me for standing up to her, for refusing to disappear as programmed. One wrote, "Seeing her meltdown helped me realize it was never about me not being good enough. She was gonna destroy whoever stood in her way. Thank you for being the one who didn't move." June 15th was 2 weeks away. The exposure had cleared the final obstacles to our peaceful celebration. Emma sat in custody awaiting arraignment. Catherine faced her own legal troubles, and the flying monkeys had scattered in the face of undeniable evidence. We could finally focus on what mattered: our marriage, our future, our joy that no amount of dysfunction could diminish. The morning show meltdown became Emma's legacy, the final act in a performance that had lasted 25 years. She'd wanted fame and attention more than anything, and in the end, she got it. Just not the kind she'd scripted for herself. Sometimes the greatest justice is simply letting narcissists tell their own truth when they think they're spinning lies. Emma had exposed herself more thoroughly than I ever could have, and that revelation liberated everyone she'd held hostage to her delusions. The divorce papers were served to Catherine the same day Emma was formally arraigned on multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and prescription forgery. Robert had moved forward with quiet determination, his lifetime of passive enabling transformed into decisive action. He sat across from me at a small bistro near his temporary apartment, looking simultaneously older and somehow lighter than I'd ever seen him. "The lawyer says Catherine's been hiding assets for years," he explained, stirring coffee he wasn't drinking. "Separate accounts I never knew about, all funding Emma's schemes. Every time I thought we were struggling financially, it was because she was funneling money to Emma for whatever disaster needed covering up." "How long have you known?" I asked, gently recognizing the pain of betrayal in his eyes. "Suspected years. Actually faced it when I saw that morning show meltdown." He finally met my gaze. Watching Emma declare she deserved everything, that you should stay in the background, it was like watching Catherine at 25. The same entitlement, the same cruelty, just without the polish Catherine learned to apply. I enabled the creation of that monster, and I'm gonna spend the rest of my life making amends. The family reckoning had begun in earnest. Without Catherine as the orchestrator and Emma as the perpetual victim, relatives who'd maintained willful blindness for decades suddenly developed clarity. The group text chains that once buzzed with manufactured drama now carried confessions, apologies, and long-buried truths. Aunt Martha organized what she called a family healing circle, though it was more like group therapy for collective enabling. 12 relatives gathered in her living room, not to attack me this time, but to understand how they'd participated in a toxic system for so long. I attended with Marcus and Jessica for support, still wary but willing to witness their awakening. I keep thinking about that lunch. Martha began, tears already forming. How we all sat there trying to convince Faye to sacrifice her wedding. Not one of us questioned why. Not one of us said maybe Emma should pick another date. We just automatically defaulted to pressuring Faye because that's what we'd always done. Uncle Thomas the banker, who'd reduced my life to a cost-benefit analysis, looked haunted. I created a spreadsheet last night. Every family event for the past 15 years where I can remember both girls being present. Faye was asked to compromise, adjust, or sacrifice 43 times. Emma 0, not once. How did we not see this? Because Catherine trained us not to, Grandmother Ruth said firmly. She'd commanded the best chair and held court like a general conducting a post-battle analysis. My daughter is a master manipulator who learned from her own childhood trauma. She recreated my parents' favoritism of her sister, but inverted it through Emma. The cycle stops now. Patricia, the therapist cousin, had prepared what she called a family dysfunction analysis. She walked the group through the roles everyone had unconsciously adopted. Catherine as the puppet master, Emma as the golden child, me as the scapegoat, Robert as the enabler, and everyone else as flying monkeys or silent witnesses. We all benefited from this system in some way, Patricia explained. As long as Faye absorbed the family's dysfunction, the rest of us could pretend we were healthy. She was the designated patient in a sick system. Her rebellion forced us all to confront our own participation. I called her selfish. Cousin George admitted, his usual pompousness deflated. Multiple times for wanting her own wedding date. My God, when you say it out loud, it sounds insane. Because it was insane. Jessica interjected, her lawyer's precision cutting through emotional fog. You all participated in systematic emotional abuse. The fact that you're recognizing it now doesn't erase the damage done. We're not seeking erasure, Martha said quietly. We're seeking understanding and accountability. The next revelation came from an unexpected source. Great Aunt Helen, the thrice-divorced relationship expert who told me I should be grateful any man wanted to marry me, stood with visible difficulty. At 83, she rarely admitted fault, but something had shifted in her. Catherine isn't the first in our family to do this, she announced. My mother did it with her children. Her mother before that. Always one child elevated, one diminished. I've been researching our genealogy, not for names and dates, but for patterns. This goes back at least 4 generations. She produced a family tree annotated not with births and deaths, but with relationship dynamics. The pattern was undeniable. In every generation, one child was chosen as special, while another was sacrificed to support them. The roles sometimes shifted between generations, but the dynamic remained constant. I broke the pattern by never having children, Helen continued, but I still participated by reinforcing it in the next generation. Every time I told Faye to be grateful, to settle, to make peace, I was echoing what was done to me as the unfavored daughter. I'm sorry, child, deeply sorry. The room sat in heavy silence as generations of dysfunction were laid bare. This wasn't just about Emma wanting my wedding date or Catherine enabling her. This was about a family curse passed down through generations, each one believing they were protecting their children while actually perpetuating damage. What about Emma? Someone asked. She's sitting in jail. Do we just abandon her? We stop enabling her, Ruth said firmly. She's facing consequences for the first time in her life. That's not abandonment. It's actually the first real love anyone's shown her. Love means allowing someone to face the results of their choices. Brian arrived near the end of the gathering. He'd been invited to share his perspective as someone who'd seen both sides. His testimony was clinical, devastating, and necessary. Emma told me stories about growing up that I now realize were complete fabrications, he said. In her version, Faye was the favored one who got everything while she struggled for scraps. She genuinely believes this alternate history. When reality contradicts her narrative, she either ignores it or tries to force reality to match her delusions. Can she be helped? Patricia asked professionally. Maybe with years of intensive therapy and a willingness to confront her false narratives, Brian replied, but that willingness has to come from her. No one can force it, and honestly, I don't see it happening while she has anyone left to blame. The conversation turned to practical matters. Several family members who'd given Emma money over the years compared notes and realized the amounts totaled over $150,000, always for emergencies, always with promises to repay, never with any accountability. The family fund she'd stolen was just the tip of a very large iceberg. I gave her $10,000 for a medical emergency last year, one cousin admitted. She said she needed surgery and couldn't work. I found out later she used it for a vacation to Europe with friends. Nah, $5,000 here for career development, another added. She said she needed it for a certification course. The course cost $500. I never asked what happened to the rest. Story after story emerged of Emma's grifting, always backed by Catherine's assurances that helping Emma was what family does. The family's collective guilt about the miracle baby had been weaponized into a decades-long con game. As the gathering wound down, people approached me individually with apologies and revelations. Some felt genuine, others performative, but I accepted them all with the same measured grace. These people were victims too, even if they'd also been participants. The line between the two was blurrier than anyone wanted to admit. What happens now? Aunt Martha asked as people prepared to leave. How do we move forward as a family? Honestly, I said, finding strength in truth. We be honest about what happened. We stop pretending dysfunction is normal. We respect boundaries instead of bulldozing them. And we accept that some relationships might not survive this reckoning. What about your wedding? George asked hesitantly. Are any of us still welcome? I'd thought about this carefully. Those who've shown genuine accountability and change are welcome, but it's my day, my choice. Anyone who can't respect that should stay home. The room nodded in understanding. The old Faye would have reassured everyone, made it easier, smoothed things over. But the old Faye had been a creation of their dysfunction. The real Faye set boundaries and held them even when it was uncomfortable. Robert waited until everyone else had left. I know I have no right to ask, but I'd like to be at your wedding. Not in any special role, just as a guest who's finally learning to be a father. I'll think about it, I told him honestly. Your divorce and accountability are good starts, but trust takes time to rebuild. He accepted this with a nod. That's more than fair. I'll keep doing the work regardless. As Marcus and I drove home, I reflected on the afternoon's revelations. The family that had seemed so solid in their dysfunction had crumbled when faced with truth. Some would rebuild themselves healthier. Others would retreat into new delusions. But none of them were my responsibility to fix or save. How do you feel? Marcus asked, taking my hand at a red light. Free, I said after a moment. Sad for the family we could have been, but free from trying to make that happen alone. The reckoning wasn't complete. Catherine still denied everything. Emma faced years of legal consequences, and some family members would never truly change. But the spell was broken. The generational curse had been named and could now be consciously rejected. Those who chose growth could move forward. Those who didn't would fade into the background where they'd always tried to keep me. June 15th approached with the promise of new beginnings built on truth rather than pretense. The family I'd marry into understood love without conditions, support without manipulation. And the family I'd been born into was finally painfully learning the difference. 2 weeks before June 15th, my apartment looked like a command center for a small, elegant invasion. Seating charts covered the dining table, each name carefully placed to prevent drama. RSVPs were tracked on a color-coded spreadsheet Marcus had designed. Boxes of favors lined one wall waiting to be assembled. In the middle of this controlled chaos, I sat with my phone on speaker, confirming final details with vendors who would become allies in this journey. "Security protocols are in place," Tom from the security firm assured me. "We've got photos of both Catherine and Emma, though I understand Emma's currently in custody. She's out on bail as of yesterday." I corrected, my stomach tightening at the news Brian had shared the morning. "Restricted to house arrest with an ankle monitor, but still." "We'll adjust accordingly," Tom said smoothly. "The venue has been swept, vendor credentials verified, and we'll have plainclothes officers at every entrance. No one crashes this wedding on my watch." The doorbell rang as I ended the call. Janet and Lisa arrived with wine and their bridesmaids' dresses for final fittings. Behind them came grandmother Ruth carrying a vintage leather box I'd never seen before. "Time you had this," Ruth announced, settling into her favorite chair with queenly authority. She opened the box to reveal an Art Deco diamond hair comb that took my breath away. "This was my mother's, worn at her wedding in 1932. Catherine always assumed it would go to Emma, but I've been saving it for the granddaughter who understood its true value." "It's magnificent," I whispered carefully, lifting the comb. The diamonds caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across the room. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Ruth said firmly. "Catherine's been calling daily, demanding I give it to Emma for her eventually wedding. As if that child will ever find someone else to tolerate her nonsense, now that her true nature's been exposed." "So, speaking of Catherine," Lisa said, pouring wine, "she's been posting again. Nothing directly about you, but lots of vague statements about family betrayal and daughters who lose their way." "Let her post," I shrugged, surprised by my own indifference. "Everyone who matters knows the truth now." The bridal shower my colleagues had planned happened that weekend. Sharon, my boss, hosted it at her beautiful home, transforming her garden into a fairyland of lights and flowers. The guest list included only those who'd supported me through the chaos, creating an atmosphere of genuine celebration rather than obligation. "I have to admit," Sharon said during her toast, "when Catherine first called claiming you were having a breakdown, I was concerned. Then I met her in person when she showed up at the office, and within 5 minutes, I understood exactly who was having the breakdown, and it wasn't you." The shower games were actually enjoyable without passive-aggressive relatives making snide comments. We laughed until we cried playing wedding-themed charades. Marcus's mother shared embarrassing stories about his childhood that I filed away for future teasing. Even Patricia attended, bringing a thoughtful gift and genuine warmth that helped heal some of the wounds from the ambush lunch. 3 days later, I had my final dress fitting. The boutique where this all began felt different, now lighter somehow. The seamstress who'd witnessed Catherine's first demand smiled widely as she helped me into the completed gown. "You look radiant," she said, adjusting the train, "and so much more peaceful than during that first fitting, like a weight's been lifted." "Several weights." I agreed, admiring my reflection. The woman in the mirror stood taller, smiled easier. She looked like someone who'd fought for her joy and won. Marcus and I had our final meeting with our officiant, his childhood friend David, who'd become a judge. We'd written our own vows, keeping them secret from each other, but we discussed the ceremony flow and readings. David had followed the family drama from a distance and offered his perspective. "You know what strikes me," he said over coffee, "how this whole situation forced you both to define what really matters. Some couples never figure that out until after they're married. You've already fought for your union against serious opposition. That's a solid foundation." The bachelor and bachelorette parties were deliberately low-key. Marcus went camping with his brothers and closest friends, returning with stories of deep conversations around the campfire, and absolutely no strippers or embarrassing pranks. My celebration was a spa weekend with my bridesmaids, where we talked about everything except wedding drama, focusing instead on dreams and future plans. I keep thinking about Emma's morning show meltdown, Janet said during a particularly relaxed moment in the hot tub. How she screamed that she deserved everything. Do you think she ever actually wanted to marry Brian, or was it just about competing with you? I don't think Emma knows how to want things for herself, I reflected. Everything she's ever desired has been in relation to what I had. Without me to copy, she has no identity. It's actually tragic when you think about it. Uh, Save your sympathy, Lisa advised. She made choices. Thousands of them, each one designed to hurt you. Mental illness might explain behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. 5 days before the wedding, we held the rehearsal dinner at Marcus's parents' home. The backyard was transformed with string lights and long tables covered in white cloth. Only the wedding party and immediate family attended, creating an intimate atmosphere of people who genuinely loved us. Robert had been invited after much deliberation. He arrived looking nervous, but healthier, having gained weight and color since leaving Catherine. He brought no gifts or speeches, just his presence and continued accountability. When he approached me during cocktails, his words were simple. "Thank you for letting me be here. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful. Your mother's been calling nonstop, but I haven't answered once. My lawyer handles all communication now." "How's the divorce proceeding?" I asked, appreciating his restraint in not pushing for more than I offered. "She's fighting it, of course. Claims I'm having a midlife crisis influenced by you, but the forensic accountant found enough financial fraud to give me leverage. It'll be messy, but it'll be done." Uncle James gave a toast that night that moved everyone to tears. I've watched Faye grow from a quiet little girl who hid her light to a woman who refuses to dim it for anyone's comfort. Marcus, you're gaining not just a wife, but a warrior. Cherish her strength because she fought hard to find it. The morning of June 14th, I woke to dozens of messages. Some were excited texts from guests, others were vendor confirmations. But one stood out: an email from Emma sent at 3 in the morning. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "Ha, Faye. I know you hate me right now, but I need you to know the truth. This whole thing has been a nightmare of your making. All I wanted was to share your special day, to be close like we used to be, but you turned it into a competition. You poisoned everyone against me, even Brian. Now I'm facing prison because you couldn't share the spotlight. I hope your wedding is everything you wanted, because it cost you your only sister. I'll never forgive you for destroying my life. Emma." I forwarded it to Jessica for documentation, then deleted it from my phone. Even facing criminal charges, wearing an ankle monitor, having lost everything, Emma still couldn't take responsibility. In her mind, she remained the victim of my selfishness rather than the architect of her own destruction. Some people never change, and that wasn't my burden to carry. The final vendor walkthrough that afternoon was flawless. The barn looked magical with its exposed beams wrapped in fairy lights. Our florist had outdone herself with wildflower arrangements that looked effortlessly elegant. The cake arrived exactly as we'd envisioned it. Every detail we'd protected from sabotage was coming together beautifully. "No signs of any disturbances," Tom reported after his security sweep. "We've had one inquiry from a woman claiming to be your mother, wanting to deliver a wedding gift, but she couldn't provide the verification code, so we declined. Otherwise, all quiet." That evening, I stayed at Grandmother Ruth's house, following tradition of not seeing Marcus before the wedding. We sat on her porch swing, watching fireflies dance in the garden, both of us remembering how she'd stood up for me in my parents' living room months ago. "Do you regret how it all played out?" she asked gently. I considered the question carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret the pain it's caused people who didn't deserve it. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret refusing to disappear anymore. "Good girl," Ruth said, patting my hand. "That's the answer of someone ready for marriage. You know who you are now, what what you'll accept and what you won't. That's the greatest gift you can bring to your union. As I lay in bed that night, June 15th, just hours away, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Tomorrow, I would marry Marcus, surrounded by people who truly celebrated our love. The journey to this moment had been harder than I'd ever imagined, filled with betrayal and pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. But it had also revealed strength I didn't know I possessed and support I hadn't dared hope for. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Can't wait to marry you tomorrow. Thank you for being exactly who you are." I smiled, typing back, "Thank you for seeing who that was even when I couldn't." Tomorrow would come with sunshine and joy, with security guards and boundaries, with chosen family and blood relatives who'd earned their place through accountability. It would be everything Catherine and Emma had tried to steal and failed to take. Not because I'd fought dirty or played their games, but because I'd simply refused to give it away. June 15th was finally here, and it was still mine. Dawn broke clear and bright on June 15th, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold that felt like nature's blessing. I woke in Grandmother Ruth's guest room to the sound of birds singing and my phone buzzing with excited messages from the bridal party. Today was the day I'd fought to protect, and it had arrived despite every attempt to steal it from me. "Rise and shine, beautiful bride." Janet called through the door carrying a tray of coffee and pastries. "Your hair and makeup team just arrived and Lisa's already started on the champagne. It's wedding day." The morning unfolded in a blur of controlled chaos and laughter. My suite at the venue was perfect, with large windows overlooking the wildflower meadows that had drawn us to this location. As the stylist worked on my hair, weaving Grandmother Ruth's Art Deco comb into an elegant updo, I felt the presence of generations of women who'd worn it before me, each bringing their own hopes and dreams to their wedding day. "You look absolutely radiant," the makeup artist said, stepping back to admire her work. "There's something about your energy today, like you're glowing from the inside." "She fought for this day," Lisa said, raising her champagne glass. "That's warrior glow you're seeing." Marcus's sister Sarah arrived with a gift from him, a letter to be read before the ceremony. His handwriting, usually so precise, showed emotion in its slight tremor. "My dearest Faye, today we make official what I've known since our first conversation about machine learning and terrible coffee. You're my person. Not because you're perfect, but because you're perfectly yourself. Thank you for teaching me that love means supporting someone's boundaries, not breaking them down. Thank you for showing me that strength isn't about never falling, but about choosing who helps you stand. I can't wait to spend my life making sure you never have to fight alone again. All my love, Marcus." I had to stop reading twice to keep from ruining my makeup with tears. Sarah hugged me tightly, welcoming me officially to their family with warmth that still surprised me after growing up with conditional affection. "Security update," Tom announced through the door. "We've had 2 attempts at entry." Catherine arrived in a white dress, claiming to be the mother of the bride, but without proper credentials, she was turned away. She made quite a scene, which we documented. Emma tried to send a wedding gift through a delivery service, but the package was intercepted and found to contain printed copies of her blog posts about you. Both have been formally trespassed from the property. They showed up. I said not surprised, but still disappointed. Even with restraining orders pending, they couldn't help themselves. "Extinction burst," Patricia said knowingly. She'd arrived to help with preparations, earning her redemption through consistent support. When narcissists lose control, they escalate dramatically before finally accepting defeat. This is actually a good sign. It means they're realizing their usual tactics aren't working. Grandmother Ruth entered wearing a stunning navy dress that made her look regal and formidable. "You look perfect, darling. Absolutely perfect. And don't worry about those 2 fools trying to crash. I had a word with security myself. They won't get within 500 feet of this celebration." The photographer, Serena, captured every moment with artistic precision. She'd become emotionally invested in our story after Emma's attempted vendor theft and was determined to document our joy. "The light is extraordinary today," she said, snapping candid shots of the bridal party preparations. "It's like the universe is celebrating with you." As the ceremony time approached, I stood before the full-length mirror for a final look. The woman reflected back bore little resemblance to the people-pleaser who'd once automatically sacrificed her happiness for family harmony. This bride stood tall, smiled genuinely, and radiated the confidence of someone who'd earned her joy through fire. "Ready?" Janet asked, holding my bouquet of wildflowers and eucalyptus. "More than ready," I answered, meaning it completely. The walk to the ceremony site was screened from guest view, but I could hear the string quartet playing and the murmur of conversations from people who'd come to celebrate rather than perform. Tom's team flanked us discreetly, their presence invisible to guests, but reassuring to me. "Final sweep complete," Tom reported through his earpiece. "All guests verified against the approved list. No signs of unwanted visitors. You're clear to proceed." I paused at the entrance to the barn, taking in the transformed space. Hundreds of string lights created a canopy of stars. Wildflower arrangements marked each row of chairs. At the altar, Marcus stood with David, both men looking handsome in their suits, but Marcus absolutely radiant with joy. When our eyes met across the space, everything else faded away. The music shifted to the processional and my bridesmaids began their walk. Each step they took felt like another brick in the foundation of the life I was building. Then came the moment. Grandmother Ruth took my arm, her grip steady and proud. "Your parents are fools," she whispered as we waited for our cue, "but their loss is my gain. I'm honored to walk you down this aisle." The guests rose as we entered, and I saw my chosen family clearly. Uncle James wiping tears, Patricia beaming with genuine happiness, colleagues who'd become friends, Marcus's family radiating warmth. Even Robert was there, sitting quietly in the back, respecting boundaries while showing support. These were people who'd proven their love through actions, not manipulation. The walk to Marcus felt both eternal and instant. His eyes never left mine, and I saw in them everything I'd been searching for: recognition, respect, partnership, and joy. When Grandmother Ruth placed my hand in his, she squeezed gently before taking her seat. "You look incredible," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "So do you," I whispered back, meaning so much more than just his appearance. David began the ceremony with words we'd carefully chosen about building love on a foundation of trust and respect. The reading spoke of partnership as a choice made daily, of love as an action rather than just a feeling. Everything felt intentional, meaningful hours. Then came the vows. Marcus went first, his voice strong despite the tears threatening to fall. "Oh, Faye, you've taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone whose imperfections complement your own. You've shown me that strength comes in many forms, that boundaries are acts of self-love, and that the best partnerships are those where both people can be fully themselves. I promise to support your dreams, respect your boundaries, and remind you of your worth on days when the world tries to dim your light. I promise to be your safe harbor and your adventure partner, your voice of reason and your accomplice in joy. Most of all, I promise to choose you again and again in every moment for all our days." I had to take a breath before speaking my own vows, the words I'd written and rewritten, until they captured everything in my heart. Marcus, you saw me when I'd been trained to be invisible. You heard me when I'd been taught to stay silent. You celebrated parts of me I'd learned to hide and supported my growth even when it meant facing uncomfortable truths. With you, I discovered that real love doesn't demand sacrifice of self, but encourages the fullest expression of who we are. I promise to match your kindness with my own, to be your partner in all things, and to build a life where both our lights can shine. I promise to trust in your love even when old fears resurface, to communicate openly even when it's difficult, and to create a home where we're both always welcome exactly as we are. I choose you today and every day in joy and sorrow, in peace and challenge forever. We exchanged rings with hands that trembled slightly, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. David pronounced us married, and when Marcus kissed me, the guests erupted in genuine celebration. We'd done it. Despite everything, because of everything, we were married. The recessional was a blur of tears and laughter. Guests showered us with lavender as we walked back down the aisle, the scent mixing with summer air to create a perfect sensory memory. In the private moment before rejoining everyone for the reception, Marcus pulled me close. "We did it," he said, echoing my thoughts. "Mrs. Chen, we actually did it." Was there ever any doubt? I asked, though we both knew there had been moments when the obstacles seemed insurmountable. "Not about us," he said firmly. "Never about us." The reception was everything we dreamed and more. The barn glowed with warmth and light. Our carefully chosen menu delighted guests, the band had everyone dancing, and the speeches ranged from hilarious to heartfelt. Uncle James spoke about choosing love over dysfunction. Marcus's best man shared stories that embarrassed Marcus and charmed everyone. Grandmother Ruth delivered a toast that brought the house down. To Faye and Marcus, who proved that true love isn't about grand gestures or perfect families, but about two people brave enough to be themselves and kind enough to love each other for it. May your marriage be filled with the same courage you showed in protecting this day. And to those who tried to stop this celebration, I say you failed spectacularly. Love won. The coordinator discreetly informed me that 2 more delivery attempts had been made during the ceremony, both intercepted. Catherine had tried to send flowers with a card reading, "Despite everything, a mother's love endures." Emma had attempted to have a cake delivered with "Congratulations to my beloved sister" written in frosting. Both were documented and refused. "They're still trying to insert themselves," I told Marcus during our first dance. "Let them try," he said, spinning me gently. "They're outside and we're here dancing at our wedding. I think we won." Brian made a surprising appearance during the reception, having been invited after his help exposing Emma's schemes. He approached during a quiet moment, looking healthier than he had during the chaos. "Congratulations to you both. Thank you for including me after everything." "You were a victim too," I reminded him. "How are you doing?" "Better. Therapy helps. And watching you stand firm through all that insanity showed me what actual strength looks like. I hope I can find something real like what you two have someday when I'm ready." As the evening progressed, I noticed Robert standing alone on the patio. I joined him, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. He accepted one gratefully, and we stood in companionable silence watching the party through the windows. "It's a beautiful wedding," he said finally. "You deserve this happiness, Faye. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what your mother was doing to you. To both of you, really. Emma's a victim too in her way." "Emma made choices," I corrected gently, "but I appreciate you being here and doing the work to change." "I've got a long way to go," he admitted, "but seeing you like this, so confident and joy-filled, makes me realize how much damage we did trying to keep you small. I'm proud of who you've become despite us." The father-daughter dance we'd skipped was replaced by a grandmother-granddaughter dance that left no dry eyes. Ruth held me close, whispering memories of her own wedding and hopes for my future. The photographer captured us, laughing through tears, an image I'd treasure forever. "Your mother called me 47 times today," Ruth confided. "I've saved every unhinged voicemail for the lawyers. She's convinced this is all a conspiracy against her. The delusion runs deep." "Let her believe what she needs to," I said, realizing I meant it. "I've got everything I need right here." The night flew by in a whirlwind of dancing laughter and celebration. Our guests repeatedly commented on the joy in the room, the genuine happiness that radiated from everyone present. This was what a wedding should be, a gathering of people who truly wish the couple well, not a performance or competition. As we prepared to leave for our honeymoon suite, I tossed my bouquet to the gathered single women. It sailed over their heads directly into the hands of my colleague Sharon's daughter, who blushed furiously while everyone cheered. Marcus and I made our exit through a tunnel of sparklers, the golden light reflecting off happy faces of people we loved. In the car, finally alone, we sat in comfortable silence for a moment, processing the perfect day we'd just experienced. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, taking my hand. I thought about Catherine and Emma somewhere out there nursing their rage and delusions, about the family relationships that had been casualties of standing up for myself, about the long journey from that boutique ambush to this moment of triumph. "None," I said firmly, "not a single one." Our wedding day had been everything they'd tried to prevent, beautiful, joy-filled, and completely ours. We'd protected it with lawyers and security, with boundaries and truth, with the support of people who understood that love shouldn't require sacrifice of self. June 15th had always been our day. Now it was our beginning, the first day of a marriage built on mutual respect, genuine partnership, and the hard-won knowledge that we could face any challenge together. As we drove away into our future, I left behind the girl who'd been trained to disappear. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, claimed her space, and loved with the confidence of someone who'd fought for her happiness and won. The wedding was over, but the life we'd protected it for was just beginning. And it was going to be extraordinary. The return from our honeymoon felt like stepping back into a different world. 2 weeks in Greece had given us distance from the chaos time to simply exist as newlyweds without the shadow of family drama. But reality waited in the form of 63 emails from Jessica, our lawyer, and a thick envelope from the district attorney's office that had been signature-required delivery. Emma took a plea deal. Marcus read from the legal documents while I unpacked. 3 years probation, 200 hours community service, and mandatory therapy. She has to pay restitution to all her fraud victims, including Brian and your grandmother. No jail time. I was surprised, though Jessica had warned me that first-time offenders often received lighter sentences. The ankle monitor and house arrest counted as time served, apparently, plus her lawyer argued diminished capacity due to psychological issues. The judge bought it partially. Marcus continued reading. There's also a permanent restraining order. She can't contact you, me, or any of our families for the duration of her probation. The emails from Jessica contained more developments. Catherine's divorce from Robert was proceeding messily with her demanding alimony, despite the forensic accountant finding she'd hidden over $300,000 in various accounts. She'd also attempted to sue grandmother Ruth for emotional damages and alienation of affection, which the judge had thrown out as frivolous. "Your mom's getting desperate," Marcus noted, scrolling through the updates. "She's been posting increasingly unhinged things on social media. Jessica's documenting everything for potential defamation suits." I pulled up Catherine's Facebook page against my better judgment. The public posts were a masterclass in delusion and manipulation. She'd created an entire narrative where she was the victim of an ungrateful daughter who'd been corrupted by her wealthy grandmother and controlling husband. The comments section had become a battleground between her remaining supporters and people who'd witnessed the truth. One post particularly stood out. "Today marks 1 month since I was banned from my eldest daughter's wedding for the crime of loving both my children equally. The pain a mother feels when her child chooses cruelty over compassion is indescribable. I pray daily for Faye's heart to soften and for our family to heal from this manufactured divide." Below it, Aunt Martha had commented, "Catherine, you tried to steal Faye's wedding for Emma. You called her employer claiming she was mentally ill. You enabled Emma's criminal behavior for years. This isn't about equal love. This is about facing consequences for your actions." The public pushback was remarkable. Even distant relatives who'd initially stayed neutral were speaking up. The truth, once released, couldn't be contained by Catherine's narrative spinning. "There's something else," Marcus said, his tone shifting. "Emma sent a letter to your office while we were away. Sharon intercepted it and gave it to Jessica, but apparently it's significant." Jessica answered on the first ring when I called. "I was hoping you'd wait until tomorrow to deal with this, but since you're asking, Emma's letter is essentially a confession disguised as an apology. She admits to everything: the fraud, the identity theft, trying to sabotage your wedding. But she frames it all as being caused by your lifetime of psychological abuse toward her. She's building a case for a civil suit," I realized. "The criminal charges didn't destroy me, so she's going for financial damages." Exactly. But here's the beautiful irony. By putting all her false accusations in writing, she's given us even more evidence of her delusions and defamation. I've already prepared a cease and desist specifically for these false allegations. The next few weeks revealed the full extent of the aftermath. Without Emma to baby and me to scapegoat, Catherine's life imploded spectacularly. She was removed from 3 charity boards after her behavior became public knowledge. Her book club asked her not to return after she spent an entire meeting ranting about ungrateful children. Even her hairdresser, who'd styled her hair for 15 years, finally had enough after Catherine tried to recruit her into spreading rumors about me. Emma's situation was equally grim. The criminal record made her unemployable in pharmaceutical sales or any field requiring trust. Her social media influencer dreams were shattered when the morning show Meltdown became her top search result. She'd started a blog called "Surviving Narcissistic Abuse My Sisters Wore Against Me." But it gained no traction, except among the small community of people who professionally claim victimhood. "Oh, she's applied to 7 jobs this month," Brian told me during a coffee catch-up. He'd become an unexpected ally, checking in periodically with updates on Emma's situation through mutual acquaintances. "All rejected once they Google her. She's living with your mom now, which I imagine is its own form of punishment." 2 narcissists trapped together with no external supply, I mused. They'll either destroy each other or fusion into some sort of super victim complex. "My money's on mutual destruction," Brian said. "Without you to blame, they'll have to turn on each other eventually." He was right. By month 3 post-wedding, the cracks were showing. Emma posted passive-aggressive memes about mothers who enable toxic behavior. Catherine responded with quotes about ungrateful children who bite the hand that feeds them. Their public sniping became entertainment for the extended family group chat that I'd been removed from, but still heard about through Uncle James. "It's like watching scorpions in a bottle," he told me during dinner at our apartment. "They can't attack you anymore, so they're stinging each other. Catherine blames Emma for ruining her reputation. Emma blames Catherine for not protecting her from consequences. It's actually fascinating from a psychological perspective." Robert's divorce was finalized in record time once his lawyer presented evidence of Catherine's financial fraud and hidden assets. She'd fought viciously until realizing the discovery process would expose more crimes. In the end, she accepted a settlement that left Robert with his retirement intact and freedom from her manipulations. "I've been seeing someone," Robert admitted during one of our monthly lunches. "A woman from my divorce support group. She's helping me understand how I enabled Catherine for so long. It's nothing serious yet, but it's nice to spend time with someone who doesn't weaponize every conversation." "I'm happy for you," I said, meaning it. His growth had been consistent and genuine, earning him a place in our lives that felt healthy and boundaried. The professional aftermath was surprisingly positive. My story had circulated through the tech community, and I'd become an unexpected advocate for workplace protection against family harassment. Sharon had me speak at a conference about maintaining professional boundaries when personal life attacks. My talk, "When Family Becomes the Enemy, Protecting Your Career from Personal Sabotage," was standing room only. "You've turned trauma into teaching," Sharon said afterward. That's real strength. Marcus's family embraced me even more fully after witnessing how I'd handled the situation. His mother started introducing me as my daughter-in-law who knows how to set boundaries like a boss. His brothers joked about hiring me as their official family drama consultant, but beneath the humor was genuine respect for choosing health over harmony. 6 months after the wedding, I received an unexpected call from Patricia. I wanted you to know that I'm writing a paper on family scapegoating dynamics for my professional journal. Obviously, I'm anonymizing everything, but your situation has taught me so much about how therapists can unknowingly enable abuse. Would you be willing to review it before publication? I agreed, curious to see our dysfunction through a clinical lens. The paper was thorough, unflinching, and painful to read. Patricia had identified every manipulation tactic, every enabling behavior, every sign professionals should recognize. She'd even included a section on how her own therapeutic training had been weaponized against me during that ambush lunch. This could help other families, I told her after reading it. Other scapegoats who think they're crazy for wanting basic respect. That's the goal, Patricia said. I can't undo my participation in hurting you, but maybe I can prevent others from making the same mistakes. The ripple effects continued. 3 of Emma's college victims reached out after finding my wedding story online. We formed an informal support group sharing our experiences and validating each other's trauma. One woman had been in therapy for years, believing she was the problem until seeing Emma's morning show meltdown. She convinced me I was jealous and unstable that the woman shared during a video call. My own parents believed her over me because she was so charming. Seeing her true face on that show was the validation I'd waited 15 years for. As our first anniversary approached, I reflected on how dramatically life had changed. The woman who'd stood in that boutique being ordered to sacrifice her wedding felt like a different person entirely. That version of me would have caved, apologized, found a way to make everyone happy except herself. This version had built a life where manipulation couldn't take root. "Any word from them lately?" Marcus asked one evening, referring to Catherine and Emma. "Oh, radio silence for 2 months now," I reported. "Jessica says that's good. They're finally accepting that contact equals consequences." "Or they're planning something big," he suggested, ever practical about potential threats. "Maybe," Ty acknowledged, "but we're ready for whatever they try. Legal protection, security protocols, and most importantly, truth on our side." The aftermath had taught us that cutting toxic people out wasn't the end, but the beginning. Without the constant drain of managing their emotions and expectations, we'd flourished. My work performance soared without the stress of family sabotage. Our marriage deepened without the shadow of their interference. Even my physical health improved once the chronic stress was removed. I saw Emma at the grocery store yesterday. Lisa reported during girls' night. "She looks rough, like age 10 years rough. She was with your mom and they were arguing about coupon usage. Very fall from grace." I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Not satisfaction exactly, but a sense of cosmic justice. They'd spent so much energy trying to destroy my happiness that they'd forgotten to build their own. Now they were trapped together, 2 narcissists without external supply, forced to face the consequences of their choices. Part of me feels sorry for them. I admitted to Dr. Chen during a check-in session. "Is that weird?" "It's human," she assured me. "You can have compassion for their suffering while maintaining boundaries against their behavior." The two aren't mutually exclusive, but remember, their suffering is self-created. Every consequence they're facing stems from choices they made repeatedly despite multiple opportunities to change course. She was right. The aftermath wasn't my fault or my responsibility. I'd simply stopped enabling their dysfunction, and without that foundation, their house of cards had collapsed. They could rebuild with honesty and accountability, or they could remain in the rubble blaming everyone else. That choice, like all their choices, was theirs alone. As Marcus and I prepared for our anniversary celebration, surrounded by friends who'd become family and family who'd proven themselves friends, I felt profound gratitude for the journey. The aftermath of standing up to abuse had been painful, but necessary. Every lost relationship had been replaced by healthier ones. Every moment of doubt had strengthened my resolve. Every attack had revealed the solid foundation of the life we'd built. The girl who'd been trained to disappear had become a woman who took up space unapologetically. And that transformation, more than any wedding or anniversary, was the real victory worth celebrating. The positive pregnancy test trembled in my hands as I stood in our bathroom on a crisp October morning, 1 year and 4 months after our wedding. Marcus was in the kitchen, making breakfast, humming off key to whatever playlist he had going, blissfully unaware that our lives were about to change forever. I'd suspected for a week, but wanted to be sure before sharing the news. Now, staring at those two pink lines, I felt an overwhelming mix of joy and protectiveness that surprised me with its intensity. "Everything okay in there?" Marcus called, probably wondering why I was taking so long. More than okay," I replied, emerging with the test hidden behind my back. "But you might want to sit down." His face went through a symphony of emotions as I revealed the test: confusion, realization, shock, and then pure, radiant joy. He swept me into his arms, both of us laughing and crying simultaneously. We talked about children planned for them, but the reality of actually creating life together felt monumentally different from theoretical discussions. "We're having a baby," he kept repeating as if saying it would make it more real. "Faye, we're having a baby." The first person we told was grandmother Ruth, who at 83 declared herself ready to be a great-grandmother and immediately started planning the nursery. "This child will know nothing but love," she said firmly, "the unconditional kind, the kind you deserved and didn't always get." Over the following weeks, we shared our news with our inner circle. Marcus's family exploded with excitement, immediately organizing meal trains and offering hand-me-downs. My colleagues threw a surprise celebration lunch. Uncle James got emotional, seeing it as a chance for the family to do better with the next generation. Even Robert, continuing his growth journey, responded with genuine happiness and appropriate boundaries, asking how he could support us without overstepping. The silence from Catherine and Emma was conspicuous but expected. They'd maintained no contact since the restraining orders, though occasional reports filtered through the family grapevine. Emma had moved to another state to start fresh after her probation ended, working retail and maintaining a low profile. Catherine lived alone in the house where I'd grown up, apparently spending her time crafting elaborate Facebook posts about forgiveness that fooled no one who knew the truth. The baby shower planning began in my second trimester, with Janet and Lisa taking charge alongside Marcus's sister Sarah. I gave them one firm directive: absolutely no drama. Security protocols would be in place, the guest list would be strictly controlled, and any attempts at gate crashing would be met with immediate removal. "You shouldn't have to worry about that at your own baby shower," Lisa said, anger flashing in her eyes at the necessity of such measures. "But I also shouldn't have had to hire security for my wedding, yet here we are," I replied with hard-won pragmatism. "Better safe than sabotaged." 3 weeks before the shower, an unexpected package arrived at our door. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakably Emma's. Inside was a hand-knitted baby blanket in soft yellow yarn, accompanied by a letter that Marcus read first to screen for manipulation. "It's actually somewhat self-aware," he said, surprised. "Do you want me to read it to you?" I nodded, bracing myself. "Dear Faye," Marcus read, "I've spent the last year in therapy, real therapy this time, not the kind where I perform for sympathy. I'm beginning to understand the damage I caused and the pain I inflicted. This blanket isn't an attempt to worm back into your life or claim any right to know your child. It's simply an acknowledgement that you're becoming a mother, and despite everything I wanted to mark that milestone. I'm working on building my own life now, one that doesn't revolve around comparing myself to you or taking what's yours. I don't expect forgiveness or responses. I just wanted you to know that somewhere out there, your sister is finally learning to be her own person. I hope your child receives all the love we complicated with our dysfunction. Sincerely, Emma. The letter left me stunned. It lacked her usual manipulative language guilt trips or subtle digs. Jessica reviewed it and confirmed it didn't violate the restraining order, since it had been sent through a third party and explicitly stated no expectation of response. "Do you think she means it?" I asked Dr. Chen during our session. "What matters more is how you feel about it," she redirected wisely. "You're under no obligation to accept or believe her growth. Your focus needs to be on your growing family and maintaining the healthy boundaries you've established." I decided to keep the blanket but not respond. It could represent hope for Emma's growth without requiring my participation in it. My energy was better spent preparing for motherhood and building the family I'd choose to create, rather than the one I'd been born into. The baby shower was everything I dreamed, joy-filled, drama-free, and surrounded by people who genuinely celebrated our growing family. Sharon gave a toast about watching me transform from a quiet programmer to a confident woman who'd teach her child to stand tall. Patricia, now a regular part of our lives, gifted us a library of children's books about boundaries, emotions, and healthy relationships. Every child deserves to grow up knowing their feelings matter, she said, her own growth evident in the thoughtful selection. Midway through the shower, security discreetly informed me that Catherine had been spotted in the parking lot but had been turned away without incident. She'd apparently brought a gift and a letter, both of which were refused per our instructions. The knowledge that she'd tried to intrude barely registered as more than a blip on my radar. I was too busy being happy to waste energy on her continued attempts at forced reconciliation. "You didn't even flinch when they told you," Marcus observed later. "Last year, that would have sent you spiraling." Last year, I still believed on some level that I owed her access to my life, I reflected. Now I know better. She made her choices. These are the consequences. Our daughter arrived on a snowy February morning, screaming her arrival with a fierce determination that made the nurses laugh. We named her Grace for the grace I'd found in standing firm, and Ruth for the grandmother who'd shown me unconditional love. As I held her for the first time, I made silent promises she would never doubt her worth. Her achievements would be celebrated without caveat. Her boundaries would be respected from day one. She would grow up knowing that love didn't require shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. "She's perfect," Marcus whispered, tears streaming down his face as Grace wrapped her tiny fist around his finger. "Absolutely perfect." Grandmother Ruth was our first visitor, moving carefully but determinedly to meet her namesake. "Hello, little warrior," she cooed to Grace. "You've been born into a family that knows how to fight for joy. May you never need that skill, but if you do, we'll teach you well." The next months passed in a blur of feedings, diapers, and overwhelming love. Grace proved to be an easy baby, as if understanding she was deeply wanted and completely secure. We established routines that prioritize our nuclear family, while including those who'd earned their place in our lives. Robert met his granddaughter when she was 3 months old during a carefully structured visit at a neutral location. He'd continued therapy, maintained appropriate boundaries, and never pushed for more than we offered. Watching him hold Grace with tears in his eyes, I saw a man confronting the grandfather he wanted to be versus the father he'd been. "I failed you," he said quietly, "but I swear if you'll let me, I'll be better for her." "We'll take it one day at a time," I told him. "Keep doing the work and we'll see." Catherine made one final attempt at contact on Grace's 6-month birthday, sending a registered letter through her lawyer. It was a formal request for grandparental rights and threatened legal action if denied access to her grandchild. Jessica handled it swiftly, responding that Catherine had no legal standing given the documented abuse restraining orders and complete lack of relationship with me. She's grasping at straws, Jessica explained. This is extinction burst behavior. When narcissists realize they've permanently lost control, they throw everything at the wall hoping something sticks. Nothing stuck. The legal threat evaporated when Catherine's lawyer reviewed the evidence against her. She retreated back into silence, occasionally posting vague Facebook quotes about missing family members who'd been stolen from her. The comments sections grew increasingly skeptical as more truth leaked out through various sources. Emma surprised everyone by maintaining her distance and apparent growth. Through mutual acquaintances, we heard she'd enrolled in community college, held a steady job, and was attending therapy regularly. She'd even reached out to some past victims with genuine apologies, taking accountability without expecting forgiveness. It seemed exile from her narcissistic supply had forced real change, though only time would tell if it lasted. As Grace's first birthday approached, I found myself reflecting on the journey from that boutique confrontation to now. The woman who'd stood frozen while her mother demanded she sacrifice her wedding date felt like a character from someone else's story. That version of me had believed love meant endless compromise, that family meant accepting abuse, that peace required my silence. This version of me knew better. Love meant mutual respect. Family meant those who supported your growth. Peace came from boundaries, not surrender. These truths, hard won through fire, were the legacy I'd passed to Grace. Mama, Grace called, taking her first wobbling steps toward me across the living room. Marcus caught it on video, both of us cheering like she'd won an Olympic medal. That's right, baby girl. I encouraged, catching her as she tumbled into my arms. You walk your own path. Mama will always be here to catch you if you fall, but the walking, that's all you. As I held my daughter surrounded by the life we'd built and protected, I felt profound gratitude for every hard choice that had led to this moment. The wedding date had been worth fighting for, not because of the date itself, but because it represented my right to exist fully in my own life. Now, watching Grace explore her world with fearless curiosity, I knew the greatest gift I could give her was the example of a mother who refused to disappear. The cycle of dysfunction that had plagued generations of women in my family ended with me. Grace would grow up in a home where her voice mattered, where her accomplishments were celebrated without comparison, where love never demanded self-sacrifice. She'd know her worth from her first breath to her last, never questioning whether she deserved to take up space in her own life. Thank you, I whispered to the universe, to Ruth, to everyone who'd supported my journey to this moment. Thank you for helping me become the mother my daughter deserves. Grace patted my face with sticky hands, babbling happily about something only she understood. In her innocent joy, I saw the future stretching bright and boundless. We'd broken the chains, rewritten the story, chosen love over manipulation. And in doing so, we'd created space for new beginnings that honored the past while refusing to be imprisoned by it. This was our happily ever after, messy, real, and entirely our own. The fairy tale hadn't been about finding a prince or defeating a villain. It had been about finding myself, setting boundaries, and creating a life where love meant freedom, not control. And as Grace took another wobbling step, reaching for her daddy with delighted squeals, I knew our story was really just beginning. If you've ever been told you're selfish for having boundaries, dramatic for expecting respect, or difficult for refusing to sacrifice your happiness for someone else's comfort, this story is for you. Standing up for yourself isn't easy, especially when it means confronting the people who should love you most. But you deserve to be the protagonist of your own life, not a supporting character in someone else's performance. Have you ever had to choose between family harmony and your own well-being? What helped you find the strength to choose yourself? I'd love to hear your thoughts. and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to hear more stories about triumph over family dysfunction, setting boundaries, and finding your voice. Share it with someone who might need to hear that. Their wedding day, their joy, their life belongs to them and no one else. Thank you for joining Faye on her journey from invisible daughter to empowered woman and loving mother. Remember, you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep anyone else warm, no matter who they are. Your dreams matter. Your voice matters. You matter. Until next time, stand tall, set those boundaries, and never apologize for claiming your own happiness. You've got this.